And welcome to my live. I am live on YouTube. I'm going to be answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, and questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. If you guys would like your own natal chart reading, synastry reading, a progressed natal chart reading, a mini natal chart reading, or mini synastry reading, the information for all of that is going to be in the description box below. You guys can go on my website underneath the readings tab. You guys can select which reading you guys would like. An email window should pop up. When you guys send me the email, we will go from there. Also, I have, hey, Mateo, how are you doing? Welcome. I am on early to catch you guys that I don't usually catch in my later lives. So I'm going to be answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, and questions about your natal charts. Also, if you guys would like astro guidance, so in astro guidance, you can get either a package of 3 sessions or 6 sessions. We go in depth in terms of your natal chart. So I have that available. I have business guidance available and even social media guidance available as well. So you guys can send me an email for all of that. Everything you guys select on my website, an email window should pop up and you guys send me an email and we will go from there. Also, if the email window doesn't pop up, usually you can find it at the bottom of the page. Hey Paul, how are you guys doing? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. I'm on earlier. Welcome to my earliest live ever. I'm excited. I'm trying to catch some of you guys that I don't usually catch with my later lives. So feel free to ask questions. What should we talk about today? Also, you guys be sure to check out my online store with astrology themed items. It's called fortheloveofastro.com. All of that you guys should be able to find under the About Me tab. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to everyone joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. What should we talk about today? Good, I'm excited too. What would you guys like to know about today? Oh my gosh, you guys, also it's 999 today. I keep remembering and then forgetting. So it's September 9th, so 99, and then 2025 adds to 9 as well. So happy 999 to you guys as well. What should we talk about today, you guys? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. Did I feel anything during the eclipse? I didn't during it. I felt it actually yesterday, and it's so interesting. Happy eclipse. Hey, Sarah. Welcome, everyone. Happy eclipse. It's so interesting because the eclipse was technically the 7th, and then I felt the energy yesterday, and one of my friends too felt the energy as well, but it was more so like within other people. Like the everyday types of people were very like agitated, but that was like yesterday, maybe afternoon, and then the energy kind of passed. You said you've been thinking about visiting your sunline in Stockholm. Nice. Hello from Australia. Hello, Australia. I'm early. How are you guys doing? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. Make sure you guys like the live. You can like the live by double tapping the screen, obviously, if you guys so choose to, so we can find more astrology friends. Oh, Sarah, you're also in Australia. Oh, that's so cool. What time is it there? You said Saturn Cancer in the 12th house. Stockholm. I'm trying to think. Hold on. Stockholm. I haven't been to Stockholm, I don't think. But yes, usually if you feel called to a place, there's usually a reason for that. So listen to your intuition. That's all that I can say. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. What should we talk about today? I'm on earlier, 10:30 p.m. Yes, exactly. I'm so glad you caught me as well. Exactly. I wanted to go on live to catch some of you guys that I don't catch in the later live. So this is the earliest live ever that I've done. So welcome for being, and thank you for being a participant. What should we talk about today? 10:30. So a lot of you guys are in Australia. That's so cool. Where in Australia are you guys? Where in Australia are you guys? And what is going on over there? I'm trying to think. Hold on. You guys have winter now, right? Hey, everyone. Welcome to the live. Oh, you're in Brazil. Nice. Where are you in Brazil? 11:30 a.m. Nice. I went to Brazil last year. I loved Brazil. I love South America. It's just such good vibes. I went to Rio last year and I really, really liked it. The energy was amazing and the nature was amazing. Oh, you're in Perth. Nice. What should we talk about today, guys? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below or anything you guys would like to talk about. How's the eclipse for you guys? How was it for you guys? How was the energy? Did you guys see it at all? I didn't. Hey, Krupa. How are you guys doing? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. North Node in the 11th house calling in humanitarian service. Yes. And with the North Node in the 11th, a lot of the time to me, this is kind of like an invention or something of that sort that you're bringing through. Like it's basically creativity through the mind, because you come out of the South Node in the 5th, okay, where it was, you know, creativity through self-expression. Like maybe you were like an actor, or maybe you were on a stage, or maybe you were, you know, a comedian or something of that sort in a previous lifetime, where it was like 5th house, like physical creativity. You're coming through in this lifetime to still be seen, okay, because those energies bounce off of each other, the 11th and the 5th, and in general, like any oppositional energy bounces off of each other. But now it's all about mental creativity, okay? So maybe you think of an invention, maybe you come up with something, maybe it is humanitarian issues, maybe it's activism, maybe it's philanthropy, maybe you create some sort of community, but it's usually for some sort of purpose, okay? Hey everyone, welcome. How are you guys doing? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So feel free to comment below. Oh, hello from India. What time is it there? You said you saw the eclipse from your rooftop. Oh, that is amazing. Where in India are you? You said you wish you could share pics. You saw Saturn on the left of the moon too. No way. That is so cool. Oh my gosh, that is so amazing. So was the moon actually red when you saw it? I saw pictures of it online, but I didn't see it in the physical reality. You said, how similar are 7th house Venus in Leo and a Libra Venus? Okay, this is how you guys can differentiate, okay? So Venus, okay, so the planet or the placement is the energy, okay? So what the energy is, okay? So it's what the energy is, okay? The sign is going to be how the energy is being expressed, and then the house is the area of life, okay? Where the energy is being expressed. So it could be similar, but it's not the same, okay? So that's the important thing to differentiate. I know a lot of people put it into the same category, especially when they're doing videos. They're going to do a video and they're going to be like Venus and Libra / 7th house, okay? But the energy is being expressed differently, okay? So the sign is how the energy is being expressed. The house is the area of life where that energy is being expressed, okay? So I'm curious to know where the Libra Venus is, like which house is it in? Welcome, everyone. You said nodal and Saturn return is currently going through it right now. Yeah, Saturn return is intense. But at the same time, honestly, you guys, you're always going through a Saturn transit. That's how I figured out that this Earth plane is ruled by Saturn. Anyways, I'm not going to get into that. But there's no need to fear the Saturn return. Like, it's a little bit more intense, yes, because basically it's the conjunction, right? And it is intense. You're kind of like in that lock. But you're always going through a Saturn transit, okay? So Saturn basically rules everything down here, unfortunately. So you're always, like the Saturn is always going through a house, right? It's just your Saturn return might feel more intense. People also put a lot of attention on it and so on and so forth, but you also have Saturn squares, like those are also intense, you know, Saturn opposition, like you're always going through something when it comes to Saturn, because Saturn's always going through all the houses, so you're always going to be restricted in the area that Saturn is going into, you know what I mean? So I just find it interesting that people like freak out over the Saturn return. Like it is intense, I will tell you that much, and to me it kind of feels like, you know, you're being put on adulthood or like your path, okay? It kind of clears out what is distracting you, what you're not meant to be doing, to put you on your path, okay? That's the way that I see Saturn return overall, but there's nothing to fear. You know what I mean? You don't have to sit in your room and hide, but at the same time, you shouldn't fight the energy either. It's kind of like during that period of time, it's all about like the path of least resistance. I hope that makes sense, okay? But yeah, so no need to fear because you're always going through a Saturn transit, so that's the struggle. Hey, Miguel from Portugal, how's it going? Where are you in Portugal? I saw, hold on, let me go back up here. Mateo, you said you're in Bahia. Nice. I went to Portugal last year too. I went to Brazil last year too. It was like a Portuguese vibe. You said you love Rio, flying there in a week. Nice. You said you fell asleep right before. Yeah, I did not. I don't even know what time it was at, to be honest. I just remember thinking in my mind, I was like, oh, the energy is pretty, like, it was high vibe. The energy was like high vibrational and I didn't really feel anything. I felt, I guess, more of it yesterday, like in people is really what it is. Like in terms of people being like agitated and so on and so forth. But it makes sense because it's like when there's an influx of high vibrational energy, all the stuff that's going on at the base of the spine comes to the surface, right? So if you're someone who has a lot of light energy, probably like best to try to dodge those people. No way, your puppy's name is Venus. Oh my gosh, coolest thing, you guys. So I went to a networking event once, okay? And at the event that I went to, it was like everyday people, okay? Like, you know, different types of like business owners and just like, I think other types of people too. Wasn't just like for business, like owner types of people, but yeah. Anyway, so there was this person that I met, and this person was a Scorpio, and they apparently, I don't know if they were lying, because these days now I'm kind of like, I'm starting to realize how much everybody lies. So I don't know if this person was lying or not, but they said they didn't know anything about astrology, okay? Which to me is surprising for a Scorpio, because like Scorpio loves astrology. But anyways, let's say they were telling the truth, okay? So they said they don't know anything about astrology. They were a Scorpio, and like they had a tattoo business, which is so Scorpio, okay? And then also like the name or something like the name, not the whole name, but part of the name had Pluto in it. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, you really don't know anything about astrology? I was like, this is the wildest coincidence ever. Like you're a Scorpio person and part of your business is called Pluto. I was like, wow. Hey Mary, how are you doing? Hey Jano, how are you doing? You said you felt good, honestly. Yeah, how was the eclipse for you guys? You said you felt good. You know, a lot of people are going through illness or emotional drama. Yeah, honestly, like anytime you guys have anything going on, even if it's health-wise, it's like something that hasn't been addressed. And I'm not a medical practitioner, okay? These are just my own opinions. But the way that I always look at these things is like try to see what's going on, like which chakra is it connected to. And then you're going to have to explore and see what's going on with that chakra and what could be the repressed emotion there. That's really what it is. So these things come out, they come to the surface to be purged and to be looked at, okay? And especially even like emotional drama, like a lot of people repress things is really what it is. You know what I mean? And then the high vibes come in basically from like wherever they're coming from. I think they're actually coming from the sun, but that's just my own opinion. And I also think that that's why they're trying to block out the sun, allegedly, my own opinion. But anyways, so the high frequencies come in, and in general, like the earth plane, the frequency is elevating. Like we are at a way higher frequency compared to like, let's say 10 years ago. So I'm more connected energetically, which is really interesting. I remember like thinking how disconnected the energy was back in the day. It's really, really, really interesting. The only way I can describe it to you guys is like, I don't know if you guys know anything about science. And interestingly enough, I never really did anything scientific in my life, like in terms of school. I did chemistry and I did physics or whatever, but I always get these like science like analogies. So I think I was a scientist in a previous lifetime. But anyway, so the way that I psychically see it is like, okay, you know, when like a solid item is like, basically the particles in the solid item are closer together. And then when you have a gas like the particles are further apart. So the way that I see the vibes is like back in the day when the earth plane was more dense, it was like the solid energy, like the particles were closer together. And now these days, because the frequency of the planet is higher and we're going into the higher frequencies, it's like those particles are further apart. So that's just like the vision that I get always in terms of the energies down here on this earth plane. So that's kind of how I can explain it to you guys. So it's more open energetically. So because the frequency is higher, people have to clear whatever is going on internally. So unfortunately for some people, especially if they've never done any inner work in their life, it's gonna like come out in terms of like lashing out at people. You know what I mean? Because people like always project. So that's the struggle. Question, could I touch on the Saturn square? Yeah, the Saturn square is intense. Welcome. You said you had a kinesiology session. It was awesome. Okay, so the Saturn square, usually so I have a video on this and I'm trying to think what it was called because it was back in the day. I think it was called Saturn transits. Check out that video, Sarah, because I talk about the opposition, the square, and then the Saturn return. So those are kind of like, I guess you can say, the more prominent things in terms of Saturn, like that'll stand out in your life. Like that's usually when you're going to go through a lot of change is really what it is. Like anytime you go through the square, the opposition, and then the Saturn return, and that's kind of like the cycle. But at the same time, like, again, Saturn's always transiting a house. It's just more intense because it's like, again, you know, the square, I personally find the square to be more intense compared to, let's say, even the Saturn return, or even, let's say, like the conjunction or the opposition. That's just my own opinion. Like all of them are intense in their own way, I guess. But the square is literally like friction energy, okay? Because you always have one planet trying to do one thing and then the other planet is trying to do another thing. Do you know what I mean? So it's intense. You usually go through some sort of change. It depends on the sign and the house. But yeah, that's kind of like the idea here. You go through some sort of change. It could be some sort of, you know, like rebirth process. Like that's kind of like the idea here is really what it is. Like Saturn, I know people look at Saturn and they fear Saturn. There's no need to fear Saturn. Saturn just clears out what doesn't really serve you in terms of getting to the top of your chart, okay? So that's the way that I see it. Like, especially in the Placidus tropical system, like the 10th house is the top of your chart, right? So you're trying to climb to the 10th house. So the 10th house is connected to Saturn. So it's like people fear Saturn, but Saturn, the way that I see it is like, it's not like a Pluto energy, but it still clears out things that are not really in the alignment with you, right? Like in your highest alignment to get to where it is that you're trying to go in this lifetime. If you're not resistant to it, if you're doing shady things, Saturn gets you too. Okay. So a lot of the time, like, because it's karma with Saturn. So if people were doing shady things, like that's what I've noticed with the Saturn return. Like if people were doing shady things before their Saturn return, they usually get caught around their Saturn return. Like that happened with that one criminal person. I'm not going to mention them now, but yeah, with a few of them actually I've noticed, like if they do shadowy things before their Saturn return, they tend to get caught around their Saturn return because it's karma. Okay. If you were working towards something, you actually get rewarded around that time. I find people, like, let's say they weren't, let's say, taking life seriously, they were wilding out, you know, they were here, there, everywhere. I noticed sometimes they have a kid around their Saturn returns, you know what I mean? Or you get married. Like these types of things kind of take place to kind of in one way, shape, or form, like put you on the path of quote unquote adulthood, like kind of in one way, shape, or form, like bring through more responsibility in your life. Like that's the way that I see it. So welcome. Hi, how are you guys doing? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. You said your chart's very Saturnian at least. Yes, I'm also Saturn dominant. So I'm Pluto dominant and then Saturn dominant and then Moon. Those are my dominant energies in my chart. So yes, it's been quite the ride, you guys. You said, that's a really good question about the Northern Hemisphere. Do they get the same eclipses as the Southern Hemisphere? I'm not sure. So definitely Google that. I'm sure the answer will be there. Let's see. Do I believe in portals? I do. Yes and no. I try not to like put too much emphasis on it unless they catch my attention. It's so interesting because at the beginning of this live, I was like, today's 999, which is so interesting. The energy is just amplified on those days. In terms of like these types of things, like the portals and like the eclipses, for example, like the transits, like I try not to feed into it, if that makes sense. Like if it gets brought to my awareness and my attention, then I'm kind of like, okay, it's happening. But otherwise, I try not to like focus on it. Does that make sense? Because I feel like everybody focusing on it amplifies the energy. And then it's just like more intense because the collective overall is like very shadowy. Do you know what I mean? So they project a lot of their fears onto these things. So they make them more intense. Like for example, Mercury retrograde back in the day before, it's so wild because I actually found text messages in my like saved photos from like back in the day. And this was from like 2014. And when I messaged one of my friends, I was like, oh my gosh, have you ever heard about Mercury retrograde? And then I was like, it's effed up, and then SH. I'm not gonna finish that word. I was dying. I was like, oh my goodness. So back then, like not a lot of people knew, so it didn't feel as intense. But like now, because does that make sense? Because so many people know about these things, they're putting their energy into that thing, so it's like amplifying the vibration. So I try not to participate in that energetically. Do you know what I mean? Because again, most of the collective is like in fear, right? So they put their fear onto these things. But I find that, you know, all of these things, they kind of bring all these things to the surface for you, right? And then after you clear it, you kind of aren't affected by it anymore. Does that make sense? Like that's what these things are for. They're kind of there to bring all these things up and out for you. And then when you clear it, you're not really as affected by it anymore. Like for example, back in the day, I would be like, oh, I can't travel during Mercury retrograde. And then at one point in time, I was like, I'm over it. I'm going to start traveling during Mercury retrograde, because they would be like, oh, you're going to experience delays and so on and so forth, which is true. I mean, like there have been definitely delays, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, I'm over it. Like, you know what I mean? But the only thing I will say is when it comes to like big contracts and those types of things, I still do try to stay away from those like during the retrogrades for sure. Like the Mercury retrograde, especially, because that's the time to try to not sign contracts. And a lot of the time it's like an energy from the past. It's like trying to loop you in. Does that make sense? So it's this. But yes, to answer your question, I do like the 8-8 portal. That's one of my favorite portals. I like 11-11. Those are my two favorite portals, I would say. 8-8 and 11-11. And the rest, I'm kind of like, whatever. Like, again, if it catches my attention, like the 999 caught my attention because it's like September 9th. And then it's also 2025, which adds to 9, which is like so cool. So it's like endings. And I find it interesting that it's like, we just had the eclipse, and usually eclipse, and it was a full moon. Usually eclipses and the full moon is like wrapping something up. It's like an ending energy. So depends. Yay, Asifor, I'm so glad you're here during my earliest live. Welcome everyone to the earliest live ever. I love you guys as well. How are you guys doing? You said Mercury retrograde is so way overdone. Exactly. You said it's more psychosomatic than anything. I mean, that's what ends up happening. You know what I mean? It's because too many people feed into it and then they amplify the vibration. And I'm just kind of like, should we really be amplifying the vibration? Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, in one way, shape, or form, it like takes away from your free will. This is the whole issue with this whole thing. I have a video on here. Where I talked about the Saturn rulership. I'll share it with you guys under my post, under my community tab. You said, how do you tell? Okay, I have a video on that, Rose, to see which planet is your dominant energy. Check it out. Type in Barbara Talks and then dominant planets and signs. Okay, you can go on astro.com. That's the website where you can check it out. But you can actually find it on AstroSeek too. They also have a tab for it. I just got used to going on astro.com and doing it the way that like you can go on there, because there's like a certain like tab that you have to click. It's so interesting because it's going to give you all this information, and it's so interesting because it's in that font that all like the GOVs use. So you like feel like it's more official, you know, that like courier like typewriter font. So you're like, oh my God, it's like official information. So I think that that's why I'm kind of like drawn to it more. But yeah, you can type in Google and type in dominant planet, and I'm sure it'll come up. But you can also go on the search tab and you can type in Barbara Talks dominant planets and signs, and you can follow the way that I did it. Now that video is from a few years ago, so the website looks different, but you can still find all the same like tabs and so on and so forth on the website. You just might have to look, you know, like it's not gonna look exactly the same, right? So you might have to actually like look to find it. You know what I mean? But it's there. Yes. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You said you believe that people end up manifesting their own negativity. That's what I'm saying, because people project, right? And most of the collective is fear-based. We have to remember that, right? So because most of the collective is fear-based, and that's why a lot of this information used to be hidden, okay, from the public, because it's like, because of the fact that most of the collective is in fear, they're their lower chakras, they're going to project their fears onto it. Like same thing, like why people fear psychics and so on and so forth. They're always like worried that someone's going to tell them something bad. Like the collective's actually very powerless when I think about it. Like, and you know, they're always giving their power away and all these things to another person as if another person was better than them. But you're actually meant to learn all these things for the self. Does that make sense? Like you can use these people as guides to assist you with developing your own intuition. We should never create a dependency, which is what I find happens with a lot of people and psychics and so on and so forth. So that's the way you guys should approach, like, let's say someone who does psychic work, you should kind of approach it in terms of they're confirming what you believe versus going to them for answers. Because the whole point is, and that's what the collective is currently going through, is that you're meant to find the answers within, okay? And, you know, all of these things, like the divination tools, I have a video on that on here as well. One of my earlier videos about divination tools, you can look at them as like training wheels, right? Like they're assisting you in terms of confirming your intuition, right? So it's this. Welcome. One second, you guys. You said, what does it mean if you see 1111 all the time? You said street number 1111. To me, it's a confirmation, but I just like the numbers. So when I see it, it like confirms what I'm thinking in that moment. But I guess you have to kind of like get in tune to see like, what does it mean for you? Does that make sense? I know like you're going to Google it and then Google's going to be like, oh, it means this, angel number that, and so on and so forth. But I think it's like whatever you want it to mean. Does that make sense? That's my thing with numbers, because sometimes I see people's birthdays and so on and so forth. Maybe I'm thinking of that person in the moment, you know, and then it confirms what I'm thinking about them. So that's kind of how I take all these things like as a confirmation. But I kind of feel like at the same time, it's like, in one way, shape, or form, like you kind of, not you, but anybody, like you might just get into the habit of noticing that. Do you know what I mean? Because like, it's like something that stands out to you. Does that make sense? Or like people who see like any other repeated number, because it's like, it's in your mind to notice it. So you notice it. Does that make sense? One of you guys said, yeah, exactly. Make a wish. I forgot about that. But yeah, exactly. 1111, make a wish. What is new, you guys? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. I'm just going back up to see who I may have missed up here. Let's see. What to look out for when Neptune is in the 10th house. So your career is not clear, okay? Your, like the public could project on you, which you could take advantage of course, okay, if the public projects on you, because a lot of the time with Neptune, I find people see what they want to see within you. So it's like, if they have like a favorite actor or actress, they'll see that within you, which is so interesting. So it could be this, or like sometimes like with what you're saying and so on and so forth, like they project onto you, okay? and it's the 10th house. So it's like the public is projecting onto you. So you can take advantage of that, okay? So there's that. And then also it could be like your career is not clear, okay? Or what you want to do for work, or you might want to do everything and then nothing gets done. So whatever house you guys have Neptune in. So, okay, Neptune, because it's generational, the sign in here is the subset of the generation, okay? The house is going to be basically for you in your chart, like where the energy is being expressed. So it's going to affect you more. So Neptune in the 10th, it's like your career, your public image. It could even be the father. Like maybe you didn't see the father clearly, okay? Maybe the father was an escapist, for example, with Neptune in the 10th house as well. If we look at it in terms of the father, or just like authoritative figures in general, you don't see them clearly. Maybe you put these people on a pedestal for Neptune in the 10th house as well. But overall, the idea here is like you don't see your work clearly, you don't see your career clearly, you want to do everything, but nothing gets done, okay? So you guys have to understand, like, you have the energy in your chart, but then you have the energy of the earth plane. So Neptune struggles down here because Neptune, energetically, the way that I see it at least, is like it's outside of the Saturnian structure, okay? Down here, for whatever reason, it's very Saturnian. So it's all about like structure and time, like everything takes so long down here. Have you guys ever tried to initiate any kind of process? It takes 5,000 years to get anything done, okay? And part of that is connected to like, yes, the rules and so on and so forth, but also like the distrust that people have amongst each other, right? But that's just what it is. That's the time that we're living in, right? So it's very Saturnian down here. Everything takes so long, but it is what it is. So you got to learn how to play the game. So it's like Saturn, it's all about, again, hard work, effort, perseverance, you know, putting the energy towards something to get the reward in the end. So Neptune operates outside of that. Neptune believes in instant manifestation, which is true in the higher realms, not so much down here. So you have to put the energy of Neptune and apply it in a Saturnian type of way. So you have to actually like take a more grounded approach. You have to figure out how you can ground Neptune, okay? So you have the strong visualization, the strong third eye chakra in that area, the 10th house, which is your career, and so on and so forth. But you could struggle with grounding it, okay? So you have to figure out how can you ground, okay, whatever it is that you're trying to do. So if you're trying to do everything, that doesn't work in the Saturnian structure, okay? And then you have to look at how does, let's say, if you look at Neptune in terms of Pisces, how does Virgo operate down here, okay? They pick one thing and then they perfect that thing. So that's kind of what you want to do. You want to pick one thing, perfect it, and then focus on the next thing. Does that make sense? So that's the struggle with Neptune in the 10th house. It's not clear. You want to do everything. And that doesn't work with the Earth's energies, okay? Let's see. I'm not answering any sort of predictive questions. Okay, I'm going back up. Let's see. Let's see, what do you guys think? Okay, I don't also do transits so much. Let's see. I try to stay away from any sort of predictive things, like predictive astrology, transits, all those types of things. Like I want us to try to live within free will at least. Does that make sense? Like I feel like all these things in one way, shape, or form like take away the free will. I just find it to be like such a control mechanism down here. Make sure you guys like the live. If you guys so choose to, you can double tap the screen to like the live. Hey Nate, how are you doing? Honestly, clip season has been fine. I've been meaning to look it up because I know we have two, but is there a third one? I need to look it up. Did we have one before this one? You said you've been on a 12 house perfection year and it's been rough. Also going through a 12 house Saturn transit. Oh, that's intense. So you're clearing out a lot to do with the subconscious there. You said, will you finally feel some relief during the one perfection? Probably. That's a struggle with Saturn. This is what I'm trying to say. Like, you're always in a Saturn transit. So it's like, I just find it so interesting that the Saturn return is so focused. Thank you guys so much for liking the live. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So you're always in a Saturn transit. Saturn in the 12th is a struggle because it's like you're clearing a lot to do with your subconscious is really what it is. You're going to go into the first, which will be a little bit easier, yes. But during that period of time, you're probably going to go through some sort of like figuring out who you are. Do you know what I mean? It's like you kind of go through this phase of clearing out all of these things that don't serve you. And now you're going into one, like the first house. Do you know what I mean? Like you're going into now figuring out who are you really, you know, learning to structure the self. So it'll be probably challenging in its own way because every Saturn transit is still restrictive at the end of the day. And that's why I find this airplane to be so restrictive. But anyways, the Saturn in the 12th is definitely a challenge. So from the subconscious and like all of those shadowy things, you'll get a relief from that, but you'll still have like Saturn's challenges. I mean, it just is what it is with Saturn. Hey, good morning. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. I used to offer courses What would you guys like me to teach? I kind of find my videos to be kind of like educational. What would you guys like to learn if I offered a course? Let me know. You said, when and how did I get into astrology? I actually have a video on that on here. It's probably going to be under my maybe entrepreneurship playlist. So check it out. It's called How I Got Into Astrology. It's actually, I think, like almost 20 minutes. So I'm not going to give you guys the long version. But long story short, it's so interesting. I always had like two things going on parallel, okay? Because it's like, I was living in terms of like very much in the matrix. I, had different businesses going on. I was working full time. Like I was working so much. Like sometimes I worked 9 to 5 and then I went to work 5:30 to 10 and then I had a business going on the side. Like I was doing the most, okay? So anyways, through all of that, I also would go to yoga, for example, and like do all these wellness things. So my interest kind of just like unfolded in that way in the wellness world. And I was always interested in astrology actually, because even when I was a kid, I would look at the magazines and like read my horoscope. So it's like always happening in the background, if that makes sense. And I was always intuitive. Like that was always a thing. Because even since I was a kid, like I would always have like dreams come true, because I would tell my grandma my dreams. And then she's like, oh my gosh, like she noticed that my dreams would come true. So that was always a thing. So anyways, it was always around me, but I had, I guess, different things that I was working on and doing and so on and so forth. And then I did my yoga stuff. So I did my yoga teacher training. I did the Reiki stuff first. So I was interested in like learning more about the chakras. And it was so interesting because when I did the Reiki training, I like wanted to learn it just for myself. Like I had no intention of doing it for other people. It was so, so interesting. And I remember the Reiki instructor saying to us as the group, they were like, your life, quote unquote, is going to change from this point on. And it's so interesting because, or like something like that sort, like along those lines, like you're going to pinpoint this, moment to be like when everything changed. It was something like that. And it's actually so facts because that's exactly what happened. So yeah, I did the Reiki stuff because I wanted to learn more about the chakras and like energy work and so on and so forth. So I did that for myself. I never like was going to do that for other people. I mean, I guess never say never, but it wasn't in my like frame of mind. Do you know what I mean? I was kind of like, oh, this is just for me. Like, I just want to learn about it. Like, what is this? I just had an interest for it. So I did that first, all my Reiki stuff. And then I did my yoga teacher training and all of that. And then I was slowly learning about astrology through all of that, like here and there, because basically what had happened was one of my friends was super into astrology. And then they told me about my moon sign. And then when I learned about my moon sign, I was like, hold on. I was like, this makes so much sense. So I was like, okay. So then I started learning more. And then probably like a lot of you guys, I started looking at everyone's charts around me. And one thing led to the next. So that's how I started doing astrology. I find astrology to be a very grounded way for me to channel my like psychic abilities. Does that make sense? Like it's a container for me because I also did tarot. Like I did all the things, you guys. So I did the tarot, I did the oracle cards, I did the readings, and it was just like, a gradual progression. And it's this. And the other thing too, I think I mentioned in that video was like, I was also like obsessed with like super quote unquote successful people. And I was like, why are they so successful? And that was also kind of what led me in that direction too. So there's that. You can find your moon sign. You can go on, let me think. You can go on any sort of astrology website and then you can type in like your natal chart information and it'll tell you your moon sign. Like type in birth chart calculator or birth chart or whatever. And then it'll give you like a bunch of different websites and you can go on any of those websites and type in your birth information and it'll tell you your moon sign. Oh, you do tarot as well? Nice. You're creating your own oracle card deck. Cool. You do Reiki too. Nice. I stopped doing the Reiki. Okay, give me 1 second, you guys. 1 second. All right, I'm back. So, okay, with the Reiki, it was really interesting because it was originally for me and then I was just like doing it for friends and family. And then I had my mobile yoga business and it's just like so interesting when you go with the flow of life, how just like things unfold for themselves. Because I created a mobile yoga business. I also did kids yoga, but like, yeah, that was very short-lived because I was like, I cannot handle these children. So that was a very short, like lived period where I did the kids yoga, but it was fun to do like the kids yoga teacher training and all of that. Definitely like really, really interesting. But yeah, it's like, I think because I'm a 12 house person, I tend to romanticize things in my mind. So it seems one way and then I actually do the thing and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is not what I thought. But at least I'm able to be like, okay, like see you later. So that was a very short-lived experience. I did a birthday party and I was like, yeah, this is like not the vibe. So anyways, I did that too. But yeah, overall I had my mobile yoga studio business and then like I would like rent studio or like studio space or like, studio space is basically what it is, like the yoga rooms and so on and so forth around the city. And then I would basically like host like, yoga classes and so on and so forth. So that was a lot of fun. If you guys do yoga, let me know what kind of yoga is your favorite type of yoga. So I did that for a period of time. And then through that, somebody else that I knew that I met during my other business days So you guys, okay, like there's just, I've done so many things, okay? So I had a fashion business, and then I had like an event planning networking type of thing where I would basically like create networking events for like entrepreneurs. So that was a lot of fun. And then through that, I met another person. So basically like a few years later down the road, and this is why it's important to network and meet people. That person that I had met back in like, you know, my networking business days, like where I was hosting the events, that person basically was opening up their own wellness space. And they like put a post, this is on Facebook back in the day, and they were like, oh, we're looking for, and they like listed all these things like massage therapists, Reiki practitioners, like, and I just like randomly filled out the form. Like it was so mindless. And then they actually reached out to me. So basically you could be like a contractor, like out of the space, you know, you can kind of have your own like business. So I had my Reiki business, quote unquote, there. And then through that, like me and the business owner, which was really cool because I was learning a lot from them. And then they were like my friend at that point. And then the business owner and me were like trying to figure out ways to like bring people in. So that's how I started teaching, is really what it is. So I would teach like about chakras to like bring people in, you know, to teach them about Reiki basically and this entire world. So I did a chakra teaching course. So basically like it was called Introduction to Chakras, okay? And then eventually I put that on here. So if you guys are new here, check out my Exploring the Chakras playlist. So I did that, and that was free. Like all those classes were free to like bring people in, is really what it is. So I did Intro to Chakras, and then I did a class for empaths, okay? So this is back in the day when everything was in person. So I did that, and then what else did I do? And then I also did, so I did Intro to Chakras. Oh yes, I did like full moon circles, but I'm like over the moon now. But yeah, so I did full moon circles, and then I think that's it in terms of like the consistent classes that I did, basically to like bring the people in. And then through that, I realized, speaking of courses, because one of you guys asked about like, you know, creating a course, I actually had a course in person. So the course I did in person was like a 4-week course on chakras, basically. So we would go like into the chakras in depth. Oh my gosh, you guys, that was such a fun period of time. That was like right before CV. So that was like 2018 is really what it is. 2018, 2019, when all of that was like taking place. So yeah, I did that. And then I'm trying to think what happened after that. Yeah, and then basically I learned about astrology, and then I started, oh yeah, so because I did the full moon circles, that's how I got into the cards. So at the full moon circles, I would like pull cards for people basically, and then yeah, I was like, oh, why don't I just put this online? So that's how like the birth of the online platform took place, because I was like, why don't I put this online instead of like, you know, doing it all the time? And same thing like in terms of teaching like certain classes, I was like, let me just put it online so I can like reference people to my online platform so I don't have to like say the same thing all the time basically. So yeah, that's basically the trajectory of the journey, is really what it is. And then yeah, so that was October 2019, and then the whole world went online in 2020, and yeah, here I am. I have been all over the place. Oh my gosh, you guys, I've worked in so many different industries. Let me tell you guys all the industries that I worked in. So starting from the bottom, okay, I worked in retail. I worked in, which I love. That was actually my favorite job ever. Like in terms of like the MATRIX, like that was actually my favorite job. I had so much fun. So I stayed there actually at that job, you guys. I worked there for like 7 years. It was during like my school, and I always did like multiple things at once. So yeah, it was a lot. But yes, that was during like my school and so on and so forth. At first I was part-time, and then I went into full-time hours, even though I wasn't like full-time. So I did that. So retail, and then I worked at a coffee shop at one point in time, and yeah, working in food is tough. I think that's one of the hardest jobs in my own opinion, is like the food industry. So like shout out to anybody who is in the food industry. So I did the coffee shop, and I'm not going to name the companies, but I think I have a video on this as well. Actually, I do. It's called My 13 Jobs. Yeah, so check out that video too. It's probably going to be under my entrepreneurship playlist, okay? All the different types of jobs I did and all the industries that I was in. So yes, so then I did the coffee shop. So I was in that industry as well. And then I'm trying to think what else. So I did that. I did retail. Then I went into banking. So that was my full-time work, okay, while I was starting my businesses. So I was in banking. So I was basically in finance because that's what I did my school in. And then I was in that world. And then I was in investments, okay? So I did banking, and then I went into investments, okay? So did that for a period of time. I met a lot of interesting people. Like literally one of the jobs that I worked in, which was like asset management, it was literally like the people from like the Wolf of Wall Street. Like, you know, those people who like do drugs. I never saw anybody do drugs, but that was their vibe. Like these people would like work like around the clock. Like how else could they be awake for so long? And they were like really strange, but yeah. And like, you know, when you can tell someone's on something, but yeah, I didn't see it, but it was the vibe. Okay. So yeah, that was probably my most corporate job, was the asset management one. And I didn't work there for too long because I found that everybody wanted to be besties, and I just wanted to do my own thing. Like I just wanted like a 9 to 5 so I could do the work and then go do my own thing, okay? But they were like all up in my business. They wanted to know what I was doing, and like anyways. So then I did that. So yeah, I did banking. And then I'm trying to think. So after the banking, oh, I worked at a non-for-profit for one day. And then I was like, this is not a non-for-profit. This is another capitalistic scam. So I like left that job. After I emailed them, I was like, yeah, this isn't going to work. So I did that for one day because I was like, oh, maybe the non-for-profit is going to be different. You know what I mean? Like you think non-profit is going to be like, you know, this thing, but it's like the same thing. You know what I mean? So yeah, so I did that. And then what else did I do? Yeah, I would say those are like my main industries that I worked in. Now, in terms of my own businesses, I did basically the event planning. So I did like the networking events. That was a lot of fun. Basically hosting those things. Like it was networking events, but at the same time, in one way, shape, or form, you're kind of creating like a party, which was like a lot of fun. So that was a lot of fun. I had my styling business, my fashion business. That was like my main thing, was my styling fashion business. That was a lot of fun. And then, yeah, then I went into the whole wellness world. So that's my life story. You said you love how I don't put up with nonsense. Yeah, because at the same time, like for me, I don't have, like for me, if something's not vibing, like I'm going to leave that thing. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not the type of person where I'm like, oh, I invested all this time into this thing and whatever. Like that's what happened in the fashion industry. I was like, okay, this isn't jiving anymore. Like I did it for this amount of time. Everyone's a snake. Like goodbye. Do you know what I mean? I was like, it's done. Like there was a few things that took place that I'm not going to talk about right now. But yeah, like a few events that took place where I was like, okay, clearly this is a sign. Because to me, the way that I see it is like when something starts to become like, you know, shadowy or like toxic, like it's done. You know what I mean? You're kind of like trying to fit a square peg into a hole. I was like, it's time to venture off and do something else. So yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I do. You said it sounds like I have a good work ethic. I do. I definitely do. Thank you for the kind words. I definitely do. And that's why I'm kind of like, when I see people and they're like trying to get things fast, like that's not how it works down here. Okay. I'll tell you that first of all. You have to work. Okay. Unless you come from some sort of like background where you're a trust fund kid, do you know what I mean? Or something of that sort. And, you know, that's your financial background. Or like, let's say you're in a situation where someone's funding you. Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, fine. But if you're on your own and you're doing all these things, like you're gonna have to do everything at the same time, basically. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just is what it is. So let's see what else you guys saying in here. What did you do in the kinesiology session, Mary, if you're still in the chat? Are you studying it or did you go to like a practitioner? Hi, Barbara. Hey, Nikki. You said you have a North Node conjunct Sun, Mercury, Neptune, North Node sextile Moon, and Pluto. North Node sextile Moon and Pluto, North Node square Jupiter. Can I tell you anything about this combo? Okay, so you have North Node conjunct Sun, Mercury, Neptune, okay? The Neptune is going to be the struggle in there because it's always going to blur what it is that you're trying to do, and it's always going to pull you out of where it is that you're trying to go, okay? Because it's blurring. It's like, it's not going to be clear. And similar to what I said in the video, like the North Node conjunctions, it's like the collective's unconscious is gearing you, okay, in certain directions, okay? So that's why it's a struggle, because it's like, you know, whatever's going on with the collective, like they're kind of deciding for you what you're going to do in terms of your life purpose. Does that make sense? North Node conjunct Sun, so that's either the father or like masculines in your life, like they're kind of going to assist you with your life purpose. Mercury could be siblings too. The life purpose here could involve speaking. It could be something artistic with the Neptune in there as well. North Node sextile the Moon and the Pluto. The sextile is a little bit more subtle, but it's still there. So you might go through some sort of change or transformation connected to the life purpose. And then the square Jupiter is interesting because there could be part of you that wants to teach all this, but it's squaring, right? So you might have to kind of like clear some sort of energy taking place within. That's the struggle with the square, is because it's like you have to figure out how you can work with the two energies together, because Jupiter wants to teach is really what it is, but it's squaring. So maybe it's like what Jupiter's trying to teach might be interfering energetically with where it is that you're trying to go. Does that make sense? You said, I realized so young. Yeah, it's true. It took you a long time to just cut things off when they get toxic. Yeah. I think it's my Sun conjunct Jupiter in my chart. I'm kind of like, okay, see you later. Like, I'm just going to do something else. Because I don't mind starting new. Or maybe it's my Scorpio energy. I don't know. Like, I don't mind starting again. Do you know what I mean? And I also don't have the ego. You know how some people have an ego and they're like, I can't do that. And I can't do that. Like, I never cared. Do you know what I mean? Because like, even back in the day, I was kind of like, money is money. So I'll work wherever. And like, I don't know, I think it's a perception you have on work too, because it's like maybe the way that I saw it was like, this is just money funding me to do my other things, you know what I mean? So that's the way that I saw it. So I never put too much like focus on that. Like I know some people get like annoyed and frustrated at work, but it's like, it is what it is. You know what I mean? I think if you find what it is that you truly like to do, or, you know, your passions and so on and so forth, it's like you don't pay attention to that as much is really what it is. So, but yeah, I do find when something gets toxic, like it's time to exit that situation. So that's usually when I would know like my time at a certain job was done. Does that make sense? When the colleagues would like start getting all up in my business and like wanting to know like my every move and all those things. It was really interesting. But what I will tell you guys is my favorite demographic that I worked with, because I started all of this young because I was like very ambitious, right? So I started working in like corporate full time, like at age like 22, 23, because I have a later birthday too. So as soon as I finished school. And I noticed out of all the people that I worked with, my favorite demographic to work with that wasn't all up in my business as much as the others were moms, okay? Because when you're young and then you work with moms, they kind of see you as their kid. So that's like the best demographic to work with. And then like the competition and beef they have is with each other. Do you know what I mean? So like they kind of come and tell you like a confidant. It's just like Libra Scorpio energy. You know what I mean? They tell you everything so you know all the tea, but you're not really involved in it because it's like they see you as a kid, but then they're all beefing each other. So it's really interesting. But yeah, that was my favorite demographic to work with were moms. But also like before I went into the corporate world, like when I worked retail, that was still one of my favorite jobs because we were all, actually no, I was the youngest then. When I first started out, everyone was older than me, so I enjoyed that too. But later on when we all kind of like leveled out in terms of age, like that was a lot of fun too because nobody took the job seriously. So I think it depends on the environment because it's like, you know, if people are like in their hustle mind or like trying to get somewhere, like they're going to be very snaky in a lot of these environments. But like, for example, when I worked retail, everybody else had something else going on. Like they were in school or maybe they had other jobs and so on and so forth. So it was like more fun. It was a more fun environment. So that's my story about all that. What am I passionate about? Probably life, having fun. You said, yeah, you know what I mean. You said you can only last a couple weeks before everyone comes for you and wants to be up in your business. Do you have Scorpio in your chart? You said work alone mostly now. I'm curious to know if you have Scorpio in your chart. You said, do I have Scorpio? Wondering right now because I have a lot of content on Scorpio energy. Yes, I'm Scorpio dominant. You said, what's my Mercury? And you've been wondering that for ages. Oh, try to guess if you're still in the chat. You said, if you guys know, don't tell the other people. You said you're a Pisces rising and North Node. This moon eclipse stuff felt so intense. Oh, that's probably why, because you're Pisces rising. You feel more surreal than ever. Yeah, see, it depends too where the eclipses are hitting you in your chart, like what house is it going through. If it's Pisces rising or like you have mutable energy in your chart, you're going to feel it more. Yes, good job. I am a Libra Mercury, but it's in the 12th house. You said corporate trains you to only care about making money. Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of how you have to treat them. Unfortunately, allegedly, my own opinion is really what it is. You're a Libra Sun and Mercury. Nice. You said avoid telling personal business or getting close to coworkers. Yeah, exactly. A lot of my coworker friends became my friends after I left the job. So in my mind, I always kind of had the intention, like for every job that I went into, to like find at least one person that I vibe with. And that was exactly what happened at every single one of my jobs. So I'm still friends with a lot of people, even if like during my time there, like, actually, no, some of them I was friends. Like, okay, here's the thing. Like, I think because I'm good at reading people, I would be able to pick up on who is like trustworthy and who's not. So I always found one person that I vibed with. Me and my one friend, it was so funny because we had like a little secret relationship, like friendship going on. So we would like go and like have coffee. Like we would like leave separately so we could like talk about the tea in the office and so on and so forth. So, and I wasn't there for long, so I'm not sure if they all caught on, but yeah, it was fun. Yeah, Scorpio dominant. So I'm Scorpio dominant. Okay, so my dominant energies are Scorpio, Capricorn, and Cancer. Okay, so basically Pluto, Saturn, and then the moon. Okay, those are my dominant energies. I'm a Libra, Sun, Rising, and Mercury. And my Libra is in the 12th house. Okay, Sun and Mercury. What house do you have your Sun and Mercury in, Jano? You said you learned the hard way not to make friends with coworkers. Yeah, that's the best thing to do. That's the best. If you can't, hey, Infinite Zebra, no worries. Enjoy. Have a good day. Yes, if you don't have discernment and you're not able to read people, it's probably better to keep a distance with the coworkers because they will snake you any chance they get. And it just sucks, especially in like the whole, I guess, Western world and like capitalistic world, that that's what it is. But yeah, that's what it is, okay? So yeah, it's been really interesting. I've encountered a lot of different people. And I think that that's like part of my own personal journey was meeting all these people. So I could like, I call it an energetic repertoire. So that's why I'm able to read people so well because of all the different people that I have worked with. You said, do I recommend yoga teacher training in Thailand or Bali? I did it local. Like I did it because I was working full time. I did my yoga teacher training like over a span of 6 months. So it was like sometimes on the weekends. It was usually evenings. So I didn't go abroad anywhere for that. What kind of yoga did I teach? I did Hatha, I did Vinyasa, I did Yoga Nidra. That was my favorite one actually, was Yoga Nidra. And then for that short period of time, I did kids yoga, but that was like so short-lived, you guys. Like it was just too much. They're just like, yeah. Bless anyone who works with children. Like that's all I can say. Like kudos to you guys. Like in terms of like a teaching sense, especially these days, like I'm seeing so many teachers talk about what a struggle it is to teach kids like in school right now because of the internet and because a lot of parents like didn't really parent their kids. They just kind of gave them like the iPads and so on and so forth. So like the kids are like wilding out in schools. So yeah, shout out to you guys. It's definitely a struggle. Oh, I answered your question, Lord. I'm passionate about life is really what it is. Having fun, enjoying life is really what it is. That's kind of where I'm at now. That's my philosophy on life in general. Have fun, have a good time, do what you love, you know? If you have a hobby that you like to do, try to like focus on that. You said, oh, I already answered that. Let's see, you said anything is better than Neptune. Neptune squaring your ascendant was horrific, was living in the clouds for 2 years. Yeah, if you're not used to the Neptunian energy, aka if you're not a Neptunian person, if you don't have 12 house, if you don't have Pisces, it's a struggle, okay? Because it's like, it really blurs things for you. It's so interesting when I encounter Neptunian people, which I encounter a lot of them. So yeah, they're really interesting because it's like, it's really interesting because it's like a lot of the time it's self-deception, but people don't see that. You know what I mean? That's the struggle. That's the struggle with Neptune. Okay, Neptune in the 11th house in Scorpio meaning. So Neptune and Scorpio is your generation. So that's the area you guys didn't see clearly for Neptune and Scorpio. And then you have Neptune in the 11th house. So that's going to affect you more. So basically the area that you don't see clearly in your life, okay, is going to be the 11th house. So it could be friends. It could be philanthropy, social activism. You could also dream about these things. So like with Neptune, or you guys have Neptune in your chart, it could also be like the area that you guys are able to channel or like get information. It could also be the area where like you guys, you know, basically get those like quote unquote downloads is really what it is, right? So in the 11th house, maybe you get ideas for inventions or futuristic things or like science, for example, or tech or these things. But it's like the struggle with Neptune because it blurs, you think about it more than act on it, right? So you have to figure out how to ground Neptune, okay? That's the trick with Neptune is figuring out how can you ground. Neptunian people. So if you have like strong Neptune in your chart, maybe you're Neptune dominant, maybe you're Pisces dominant, maybe you have a lot of Neptune aspects to your personal placements. Okay, that's Neptunian. If you have 12 house energy in your chart, if you have, let's say, you know, a lot of Pisces in your chart, like then you're Neptunian, basically. My hobby is travel. You said both of your Sun and Mercury are in the 11th house. Okay, okay. You said Neptune and Sag, 9th house, born in the wrong religion. There you go, okay? Because that happens a lot for Neptune in the 9th house because you want to be free. That's like a free thinking energy. You said, how about when someone's Sun and Mercury is on your south node? So in synastry, you mean their Jupiter and Venus is also in that sign. It says, what does that say about synastry? You said, what does it mean when someone's Sun and Mercury are on your south node? I'm trying to think. Sun and Mercury, their Sun is on your south node. This could be like a past life thing, but I also want to say that this person's kind of pulling you out of what it is that you're trying to do. Maybe they have a lot of ego or something going on. There's something going on here because it's a south node, right? So south node automatically is a past life connection, but then it's like it opposes your north node, right? So it's like they're pulling you out of where it is that you're trying to go. So that's how you guys can look at south node aspects, right? Whatever's going on with the south node is pulling you out of where you're trying to go in terms of the north node, okay? You said their Jupiter and Venus are also in that sign. What sign is it in? You said you notice that your intuition is way different than most and how you channel. You feel like it's less filtered. Interesting. So more grounded. The last place that I traveled to was Scotland. I was in Edinburgh. Check out my Instagram. I post all my pictures there where I go. I've been to 30 countries. Yay. I just hit my 30th one. So that's what I do. You said avoid telling personal business. Yeah, don't tell your coworkers your personal business, especially if you're like somewhere in the West. You said, for those that are into astrology, what do you think attracts the soul to it? You've read that people that even interest that even people, hold on. You've read people saying that even interest in astrology, the occult in itself is a type of karma, like your soul chose it. Yeah, it's true. I feel like my own opinion at this point in time, I feel like it's unexpressed energy from a previous lifetime, okay? You probably gathered a lot of information, you weren't able to express it. Anything to do with like the occult or maybe the psychic world or these types of things. Like if you're in the psychic world, I feel like it's accumulated knowledge that you probably weren't able to express, okay? So you are probably living now during a period of time where we're able to express it, okay? So you can look at it like karmic in that way, okay? Maybe in the past you were ostracized for your knowledge. Maybe you had to hide. Maybe you, whatever. Maybe you were like, what's the word? Incarcerated. Maybe you were taken out for it. You know what I mean? So a lot of the time, like psychic people and intuitive people and people in this world basically have to work on opening up their throat chakra is really what it is. But now's the time. I mean, now's the time more than ever, at least. Hey, Silverus, how are you doing? What's new? Hey, Infinite Zebra, you said you're a Libra Sun, Libra Mercury in the 8th house. Is that why you click with what I say so much? Yeah, probably. Same thing with the Geminis. I find that if I do attract Geminis, they have Gemini in the 8th house. You know what I mean? So that's probably why. Because it's like Libra's a fun energy, but I have it in the 8th house. So it like adds that layer of depth is really what it is. So I do that, Lord. I travel and I work. That's what I do. You figured it out. So I'm always working, you guys. So it's so interesting when I go somewhere and they're like, oh, are you on vacation? I'm like, no, I'm actually, like in my mind, I'm like, I'm working and I'm traveling. I do what I do so I can travel, okay? So yes, that's what it is. Because what I do, like in terms of like the readings and so on and so forth, I can do anywhere, right? So that's why I created it that way, is really what it is. So that's what I mean. Like you have to figure out what your like number one thing is or your priority, and then you can kind of figure out how to get there and do that. Does that make sense? But yeah, I'm always working. I can't not work because probably my Saturn and my charts. I also have Capricorn in my 4th house, so there's that. But you know what? I'm trying to think. I feel like Saturn aspects a lot in my chart too. But regardless, I'm Saturn dominant, so there's that. Pluto dominant, Saturn dominant, and then Moon. You said Gemini. You said it's really sweet, spooky energy. Yeah. You said Gemini, Aquarius, Libra have strong chemistry. They do, because they're all air signs. You're Gemini. T, can you tell me what house do you have Gemini in? You said you have Leo intercepted in the 8th house. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, a lot of the time what tends to happen with the Leo in the 8th house is like, okay, first of all, you have to look at the shadows of Leo, okay? So what are the shadows of Leo? You could struggle with being seen, especially in the 8th house, okay? Because a lot of the time I find Leo in the 8th or even Leo in the 12th, but especially Leo in the 8th, okay? Or sometimes even Scorpio in the 5th. I noticed that with them too. It's like these people want to be seen creatively, but they struggle to be seen, okay? Because of that 8th house energy, it's like hiding you, okay? So what does this mean? You kind of have to overcome that. I've noticed this a lot of the time with people who, let's say, want to be ghostwriters, for example. A lot of those like faceless accounts, for example, like the ASMR and so on and so forth, where you don't see the person, like that could be Leo in the 8th, where it's like they are expressing their creativity, okay, but it's hidden, okay? But the way that I see it is like, because it's Leo in the 8th, you have to overcome that, okay? To be okay with being seen. Also Leo in the 8th, you have to look at the shadows of Leo, okay? You could struggle with rejection. That's the biggest thing for Leo. You could struggle with self-worth. You could struggle with your confidence, okay? And it's intercepted. So now there's the energy, okay? And I'm not a psychologist. That's always my disclaimer. But there's the energy of like when you were younger, okay? You weren't able to fully express that, okay? For whatever reason. Maybe the parents were different than you. Maybe they were, let's say, more, you know, linear. And maybe you were creative, for example, right? So you have to work harder now to pull the energy out. That's how I see an interception, basically, okay? Gemini in the 2nd house, nice. You have Jupiter, Gemini in the 3rd house, nice. Oh, good. I'm glad that you learned a lot about me or from me about the secondary progressions. Good. It is, you guys. And that was the other thing. When I discovered secondary progressions, I was like, oh my gosh, my life makes even more sense. So that's why I started teaching, and that's why I do the secondary progressions readings, okay? So in my secondary, like the progress chart readings, I basically do the original natal chart and then I talk about the progressed charts, okay? Because you progress out of the energy eventually, okay? So you're not always going to be the same energy. I mean, it's usually the internal planets. I have seen some external planets progress, but very rarely, okay, have they progressed for people. But yes, it's how you grow and evolve and change through time. So I have a whole playlist for the secondary progressions if you're new here. Thank you for the kind words, you guys. You said synastry in secondary progressions is something people need to understand as they get older. Exactly. You said Leo in the A house sounds like it's powerful. Exactly. At its best, it is going to be powerful for sure. You might see this energy in acting, for example, because a lot of actors are into the occult too, allegedly, my opinion. So you'll see a lot of Scorpio combinations, Scorpio-Leo combinations in their charts, or like, again, Leo in the A house and so on and so forth. You said, any advice on, you said interpreted. Do you mean intercepted? Part of fortune? Mercury, Gemini in the third house. Nice. You said, so their Sun and Mercury are conjunct your Gemini South node. And then Jupiter and Venus are also in Gemini, but a few degrees away. Okay, can you type all that again? And can you tell me, this might be something that I have to see like in front of me, but if you type it again, can you tell me who is the Jupiter and Venus are also in Gemini, but a few degrees away? Like, who is that? So can you type it and say, this is you, the Sun and Mercury, and then Gemini South node is you? Like, Sun and Mercury is the other person, and then Jupiter and Venus are also in Gemini, but a few degrees. Is that the other person? Let me know. I might have to see it though in front of me because that's a lot of information. You said Libra Sun, Libra Mercury in the A house. Yes. You see like through the shadows. You said Gemini, their Sun, Mercury are conjunct. Okay, so their Sun, Mercury are conjunct the South node. Okay, so I already answered that. And then you said Jupiter and Venus are a few degrees away. Definitely feel like it's a past life connection. Any South node conjunctions, you guys, are going to be past life. I'm curious to know what's going on with the houses. You said how to be famous without getting trapped in the Hollywood. Okay. I'm like, oh, should I have said that word? But yeah, they're cults and so on and so forth. I mean, you have the internet, so there's that. I don't know if you'll make it to the international level unless you sell out, allegedly, my own opinion, but you can get to a certain extent. It's just going to take, it's going to be longer and it's going to take more work and effort, okay? And you're going to have a lot of things sent your way to throw you off your path, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, because that's the whole thing. Like, you have to kind of explore, okay? Because in terms of fame, you have to look and see, why are you looking to be famous, okay? Because if you get to the root of that, then it'll kind of clear the desire within you, right? So what is the reason you want to be famous, okay? Because it's like, is it that you want to be seen? Were you never seen? Is it that you want to be heard? Maybe you were never heard. Is it that you want a lot of money, right? So trying to kind of like figure out how you can get those things, because then you're not focused on the ego aspect of it. Does that make sense? But you can use the internet, I'm sure. These days, a lot of people, especially like in the beginning of TikTok, they really took advantage of it, right? So that's what's blessed. And it's actually really interesting because in one of my videos back in the day, I archived it now because I'm like kind of over the new age like concepts, and I would talk about some like new age like terms in there. So I'm like trying to stay away from those. But in that video, I was actually seeing that we're coming out of like the pyramid structure, which is like one celebrity at the top and like everybody worshiping that person. And we're going into like the circle energy where everyone's kind of like a celebrity vibe. So what does this mean? Like everybody knows each other. So we're going into the energy of like everyone kind of feels like a family energy. Everyone will know who the other person is. Okay, so that's like the, I guess, organic way versus the inversion, which is like one person's at the top, okay? But yeah, so it's this. Oh, good. I'm glad that you enjoy listening. Yeah, okay, Bryce, what they do when they make you sell out is they make you do dark things. That's what it means to sell out, okay? So that's the struggle. They make you do dark things and then they basically compromise your soul. That's what it means to sell out. You guys have to understand that. Like, they're going to make you engage in like certain dark things that are going to go against your morals. So that's the struggle, because then that basically like fragments the soul even more. And then you get trapped down here in this earth realm, because that's why a lot of them don't want to cross out. What they do, and it's just my own opinion, okay, allegedly, but basically what they do is they never fully cross out. They catch them on the astral and then they reincarnate them again, okay? So a lot of the people that we see are basically the same people that are being looped for so many years because of the dark things that they've done, okay? Allegedly, in my own opinion, the soul is so fragmented. So they are aware, like we're all under the Saturnian structure together. So they are aware, and they also fear having to basically exit, because then they're going to have to face the quote unquote karma for their actions. And it's dark things that they have to do to basically engage in these things to get to where it is that they're trying to go. And I'm not going to go into detail here. You're going to have to do research, okay, to see what that is exactly, okay? But it could just be like going against your own morals. Like it could be something like that. And then it's one thing, and then it, you know, it leads you to the next, and then it gets you into this like whole dark situation, and then the soul in one way, shape, or form has been compromised. So it's like you can't literally sell the soul, but you can get compromised, okay? And a lot of the time, like unfortunately, most people, you know, have a price is really what it is, right? So it's like they're gonna promise you all these things, you're gonna get all these things, all this money, and so on and so forth, and then you have to do this, and then they catch you in these compromising situations and positions, and then you allow, that's the other thing, then you allow these dark entities to enter your vessel, okay? And then you're kind of pushed out of the body, okay? So that's the struggle, because it's like a lot of these people, when we see them having these, like, again, allegedly my own opinion, but like episodes, it's like the soul is trying to re-enter the body, but there's also like something dark that is maneuvering it. It just sucks because like a lot of them are born into this. So they do it from like a young age. And that's also why they do a lot of like S-Ule, so S-E-X-Ule, okay, things with each other within the families, because then they operate as like a locked grid together. Does that make sense? So yeah, and then they actually get energetically, like from the astral, they're able to pull the strings, okay, on those people because they've hooked into their sexual energetic field. I mean, a lot of people are already engaging in these things without even realizing. That's why I try to explain to you guys, you know, it's really important. Thank you guys so much for the likes, but it's really important to see what's going on, okay? Because it's like a lot of people sell out in certain situations too. Do you know what I mean? Like anytime you go against the self and like the true nature of the soul, you're in one way, shape, or form like selling yourself. Does that make sense? So it's just a struggle, because that's how they kind of get people into these situations, and then the soul has some sort of regret, and then they get looped back into reincarnating again, and that's what's unfortunate. So it's like that's what the religious books, even though it's like two truths and a lie, they're trying to teach people how to purify the vessel, okay? Because the more you're able to purify the vessel. When I say purify, you know, be a good person, clear, like try to go into the higher chakras, okay? The higher likelihood you have to exit this realm. Otherwise you get looped back down here, okay? And that's what sucks for them in the struggle, okay? Because they're basically stuck down here, okay? So that's why, okay, they are like obsessed with immortality, okay? Because immortality is very satanic, because they want to stay down here, right? Because if they actually cross out properly, who knows where they're going to go? Like they have to go face their actions, like the karmic repercussions, right? And we're operated by Saturn down here. So it's not going to be fun, okay? So that's why they're obsessed with immortality, trying to upload everybody into computers because they want to stay here, okay? Is really what it is. So that's kind of what's going on with that. In a nutshell, of course, there's always so much to say. You said, you only have Gemini South Node. They have Sun. Okay, so that part I got, the Sun and the Mercury conjunct, and then the Venus and Jupiter in the same time. Oh, but it's not conjunct. Can you tell me what house all of that is going into? It's going into your 4th and your 5th house. Oh, so they probably feel like family. Yeah, exactly. You have to get to the root of why, okay, what you're doing, and you have to find the answer. So if you're able to go in, so that's how you guys heal, okay? When you really want something, you have to see what is it that you actually want, right? So for example, if you want to have a lot of money, you have to go to, and then you put yourself in that energy. Does that make sense? So let's say you want to have a lot of money. Why would you want to have a lot of money, right? Okay, is it freedom that you want? Is it, for example, safety? Is it, for example, you know, control? Like, what is it? You have to get to it. So then you have to figure out how can you create that environment in your everyday life. That's how you go into the energy to clear it. Does that make sense? So anytime you want something, you have to think about what is the root reason why you want that thing. Because the desire is there, but usually like you're projecting it onto a surface level thing or something that you've seen, okay? Because we're very visual creatures. So like everybody wants something that they've seen. And that's what I try to say too, like in terms of like, let's say somebody who wants to be a singer, okay? You have to explore and be like, okay, why do you want to be a singer? Okay. Is it, you might have the good voice, yes, but is it, you know, the aspect of being on a stage? Is it, you know, the aspect of being in front of a, like, what is it? Because then you can kind of get that in something else. Does that make sense? Like, so it's this. So anytime you have something, you want to get to the root of that thing, right? And try to create the energy in your life already. So then you're in it. Does that make sense? Because if you're chasing something and you don't know why you're chasing it, it's like, you're always going to then want the next thing, right? That's how people always end up being unhappy in certain situations, right? Or people who like, for example, renovate things all the time, right? I find that with Virgo energy, they're always like renovating things. You said you watched a video and a guy in the video basically kept saying he'd rather be homeless than famous. Yeah. Yeah. It's intense what they do. I'm not going to get into it here. You're going to have to do research for yourself, but yeah. Yeah, exactly. You said, do I believe having the same sun sign as another's moon sign is a major in synastry or overemphasized? It has to have there has to be other things going on in the synastry, you guys, okay? It can't be just one aspect. Like, what kind of synastry are we looking at? If it's romantic, you need to have like moon to Venus, for example, in there, okay? And depends what kind of romantic are you looking for. If you want something long-term, you want to have Venus, Saturn, okay? Or Saturn aspects going on in there, okay? You know? So like sun to moon, it's like, in terms of synastry, for the moon person, the sun person is the outward expression of them and their internal world. So it's like, I can see how these two people can get along, okay? But that's not going to be the only thing here, right? In terms of like, what's going to keep these two people together, you know? And like, sometimes the moon person could develop some sort of obsession even with the sun person, or even sometimes the ascendant too, okay? Because the sun person is the outward expression of them. But at the same time, if you're in that energy, and going back to the root, right? If you're in that energy where you're obsessive over someone, there's probably something in their field or their qualities that you like, right? So you have to figure out what is it so you can be that, okay? So in terms of like the moon to the sun, like obsessive energy, or like the moon person liking the sun person, it's like, because the sun person is the outward expression of the moon. So the moon person then has to figure out how to be the outward expression, right? Instead of suppressing the energy within. Does that make sense? Yeah, exactly. So that's how you actually manifest, okay? So that's how you actually manifest. That's why like all the manifestation coaches are not right, okay? They have part of the story. They have part of the story. Like, they're almost there, okay? And this is what I mean by like fourth dimension, third, like we're in the third dimension, and then people learn spiritual concepts and then they apply it in a fourth dimensional kind of way, but that's not still going to give you the outcome, okay? Because you have to get into it to see what is it's usually an emotion that you're chasing, okay? So you have to figure out what is the emotion that you are chasing, okay? Or what is the emotion that you are masking? Or what is the emotion that you're avoiding? Like, what needs to be transmuted? So you have to like go in energetically to see what is it, okay? And that's how you get to the root of it. So it's like, if you're actually trying to manifest, people are going to say in the manifestation world, they're going to be like, oh, visualize yourself in that. And then they're going to be like, see what it feels like to have that thing. How can you see what it feels like to have that thing if you've never had it? How are you going to know what it feels like? Do you know what I mean? So it's like, then it's not that what you're trying to get. You need to see what the feeling is that you're trying to get, okay? So most of the time, people are chasing a feeling, okay? They're not actually chasing the thing. The thing is the outward expression. That's why a lot of the time when people do get what they want, or they do get all of these things, they're still not happy, okay? Because there's something that they are, like, there's something unresolved, okay? Internally. So that's the whole thing. Like, as long as you have desires, there's something that is unresolved internally that needs to be looked at, okay? And that's really what it is. So like I mentioned, it could be a feeling that you're chasing, okay? It's usually that, or it could be something that you're masking or hiding or suppressing or repressing, okay? And that's what everything is rooted in. So you have to explore. And then again, I'm not a psychologist, but everything's connected to the childhood, right? So it's like what took place there to create this feeling that you're trying to get, okay? Is really what it is. So that's the whole story about everything. That's what's happening down here. You said, do twin flames actually exist? How would you meet them, and what twins that are born? I think twin flames, okay, don't get me started on this tangent. Okay, twin flames, you guys, I talk about this on my threads. Twin flames is you basically uniting with your own masculine and feminine energy within. It never has anything to do with the other person. Because I was thinking about that the other day too. In terms of relationships, even friendships, okay? People are always trying to get their needs met. And that's the other thing. You have to explore what need are you trying to get met through this other person. That's how people get exploited. Because a lot of the time, if you are unaware that you have an unmet need, and someone, let's say, is a narcissist, which they're very good at reading people. This is why I talk about empath and narcissist are pretty much like the same energy. It's just like one's the shadow version and one's the divine version, I guess, too, okay? So it's like the narcissist energy is able to read people to the point where it's like they're able to hook into the needs, okay, that you have, okay, or the wound. I usually call this the wound, but it could be a need, right? So they hook into that and they kind of sprinkle it in there. They feed it. Is it compliments? Is it validation? Is it your fear of being alone? Is it whatever, okay? It's on a huge range, okay? So you have to see what it is, because otherwise people hook into that and then they feed into that. That's what everything is based on, you guys, okay? This whole system. So in terms of twin flames, okay, that's all. Like, people, I just find it interesting because they put all this energy on another person, okay, Again, you're giving your power away. Your energy is being siphoned. And actually, the whole issue here is the feminine energy down here on this earth plane, like people who are the feminines in the divine feminine story, rhetoric, are actually like meant to be destructing this energetic structure, okay? Instead, they are in codependency through a thought of an imaginary relationship, okay? I hate to say that, but that's what it is, okay? You're waiting for something that might happen. I hear these stories. It's so wild. Somebody said to me, they're like, oh, I went to this twin flame specialist because they didn't like the psychic that was blunt, okay? Somebody that I know. They didn't like the psychic that was blunt and told them, like, basically let this go. They went to someone that's a twin flame specialist. And then I'm just curious because I'm just trying to plant seeds because I'm not going to say anything. Like, when someone's in that basic, like, cloud, okay? Like, basically the cloud, the Neptunian cloud, the Neptunian fog, they don't see outside of that, right? So now they're going to find someone who's going to validate what they believe. They found this like twin flame specialist. And I'm like, okay, is this person with their proverbial twin flame, like, are they together? No. The person's like, oh, they've been separated in separation for 13 years. 13 years? You're wasting 13 years, okay? 13 years. On what? On smoke and mirrors? Like, please, okay? It's time to like get with like the program, okay? You know, if this person wanted to be with you, they would be like, what are you waiting 13 years for? Oh, this happened. You're always making up excuses. So it's like, basically the way that I see the twin flame activation, like people can activate you into your, you know, awakening, your life purpose, you know, but you're meant to come into that energy within. And that's what marriage was supposed to be. Oh my goodness, don't get me started on that tangent. That was also supposed to be a metaphor, okay, in terms of the union of the masculine and feminine energy within, okay, because we all used to be masculine and feminine energy within balance, and then it got separated, okay, into the polarities, okay? There was a period of time where people were codependent and they needed the other person to operate, and that's because of the way society was. Now we're not in that anymore. So why are people going backwards? I just don't understand. Like, I don't understand. People are lazy. Like, that's just like the shadow energy. Like, they're lazy. They don't want to do the work. They don't want to do the work for themselves. So they want to depend on another person. And then they depend on the other person. And then they're like, you know, upset when the other person is mean to them, rude to them. But like, you're giving all your power away to this person during a time that you don't have to. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, you don't have to put all the energy on the other person. Like, I don't understand, you know? But it's like the delusion, okay, and the illusion that's fed from a young age. Oh, one true love, you're divine. And there's always a word for it, twin flame, divine counterpart. Now they're saying, you know, special person. What is the other one that I heard? Divine person. Like, it's always going to get repackaged because that's the wound. And speaking of getting to the root of the wound. So again, you guys have to explore if you're in this, okay? What is it that you're looking for here? What is the root, okay? If you're looking for this one true love, okay, or true love, maybe you want to be seen. And then why aren't you seen? Because you're hiding. Why are you hiding? Do you know what I'm trying to say? So you have to get to the root. If this is like something that you're looking for, like, why have you given all your energy away to this person? Or sometimes I find it as a form of avoidance from relationships in the physical realm. Like, if people are constantly thinking in their mind and they're like, oh, there's this one true love out there for me, they're not engaging with people in their physical realm and in the physical reality, okay? So it could actually be an entity that's hooking in and feeding this. That's actually what I believe it is at this point in time, okay? Because ultimately, what you want to get to is you want to get to the true love within. Like, I think people are looking for their connection to God. Actually, ultimately, like, if I'm going to get philosophical on what I actually think it is. So you have to get there yourself first and not put that on another person. As long as you're in the energy where you're putting it on another person, you're giving your power away, and it's never going to be a healthy relationship, okay? So it's this. Hey, everyone. You said you logged in just in time. It's your twin flame's birthday today. Are you guys together? You said, but you won't greet him because why did my soul even sign up for this awakening? You said your energy was siphoned, suffering from psychic attack, possession, kundalini symptoms, and you almost, you know, got taken out. Okay, so now I'm just going to ask you, like, is this a positive person in your life or is this a dark energy? Like, do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, is this, why are you still, like, for anybody who is in these situations, like, what's going on here? Like, it's a siphon on my true belief is that it is a siphon on the feminine energy, okay? Because the feminine energy is meant to be focusing on destructing this energetic structure down. That's what the feminine energy is meant to be doing. Like, the feminine energy is meant to come into their power, okay? And break down the energetic structure. Instead, everyone is distracted and focusing on another person. You're not meant to focus on the other person. Like, the energetic templates within people are like all backwards and inverted, okay? The way that it should be is the feminine energy needs to be doing the feminine energy work, okay? Whoever is in the feminine, okay? It doesn't really matter what your gender is. And the masculine energy person, or whoever the masculine is meant to be creating this energy to protect, okay? Or like this basic like energy of like, you know, comfort, not just comfort, but just like a container, basically for the feminine to be able to do the energetic work that the feminine is meant to be doing down here. The feminine energy is not meant to be chasing the masculine energy. If you're constantly thinking about the person and you're focusing on them, and you're annoyed about them and you're upset about them and you're lurking their social media and you're doing this, you are chasing them, okay? And you're not meant to be in that energy. If you're a feminine energy, that's what needs to be purged, okay? Because you are codependent on the idea of something, okay? That's kind of what I'm trying to get at, okay? So that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. You said the actual person was positive, but you had gang stalking and fake accounts really sounded like him. It was demonic. You were confused and it was entity. There you go. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I personally think that it's entities that hook into people's energetic fields, okay? And that's like, when I talk about people being energetically porous, this is another form of it, okay? Because that is a wound or like a soft spot that somebody might have. Like, I understand everybody wants love at the end of the day, but if you're entering into these dynamics where you're putting that on another person, it's like, I don't think that that's how it should be. I think the feminine energy needs to be love on their own. Like, everyone needs to be love on their own, okay? And the question is, how do you get there? You have to clear out whatever's going on in the lower chakras. Otherwise, you're entering in these lower chakra dynamics always, where you're putting yourself into a situation where your energy can be siphoned, yes, where your energy can be like basically taken advantage of, okay? It's very shadowy. You said it's overblown and inaccurate. It's not the way that it is, okay? It's not the way that people explain it. Let me just say that, okay? It's not this. It's not like, it's not a physical manifestation, okay? It's like a spiritual concept that people are trying to materialize. So it's like a fourth dimensional way of looking at it, right? You're taking a spiritual concept and you're trying to materialize it in the physical realm, okay? That is not, like, that's not what it is, okay? It's not this. It's like, it's all about getting in tune with your energy within, okay? It's more so spiritual. It has nothing to do with like another person or anything of that sort, okay? That's giving your power away. You should try with things you don't want, like relationships. You said you should try this exactly with things that you don't. Okay, there you go. You said create the opposite of the energy of avoiding the abandonment. See, okay, this is before I even got on this tangent. You were saying you should try this with things that you don't want, like relationships. Yeah, so that's the thing. If you're avoiding something, you have to get to the root of why are you avoiding that thing. Do you know what I mean? And it's interesting because that actually relates to what I was saying in terms of people and the concept of twin flames. That's actually a form of avoidance, okay? Because you're in this imaginary world in the fifth dimension with this person that hasn't materialized it. The way that I see it, you guys, is like, if it's not happening in the physical plane and this person isn't changing in the physical reality, why are you in this situation? Like, that's just what I want to know, okay? Because it's like, otherwise it's something imaginary. It's something that might not even materialize, okay? You're waiting for someone to heal, or you're waiting for someone to leave the karmic. Don't get me started. Oh my gosh, do not get me started when people are talking about third-party situations and there's a karmic. Oh, there's a karmic. They need to leave the karmic. Like, where's the self-worth? Like, hello? You're waiting for this person to leave the karmic. Like, go find somebody else. Like, I don't understand. Like, why is that the only person, you know? Like, what is it that was awakened within that you think you can't find within another person? Like, that's what needs to be explored, okay? You said this person talked about the Saturn moon. That's so interesting. I actually discovered my whole like epiphany about Saturn. I discovered by myself, and then I found people talking about it. So I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I came to this conclusion. So I came to the conclusion that Saturn rules everything down here because I was trying to figure out somebody's rising sign. Okay, and I don't do this professionally, but I was trying to figure out somebody's rising sign. And like, if you have enough information about the person and their major life events, you can figure out the rising sign by the Saturn transits. So I was like, oh my goodness, because I figured it out by the Saturn transits, I was like, hold on. I was like, Saturn is ruling everything down here. And that just opened up Pandora's box. So check out my threads, you guys. I'm going to share the video where I talked about that. I talked about it on one of my lives last year. Okay. Not last year, but earlier this year, like at the beginning of this year. I'll find it and I'll share it with you guys actually. Okay. And it was so interesting because I did find it the other day when I was looking for something else. And it was literally it was the Saturn video about like how Saturn rules everything down here. And it was literally at 666 views. And I was like, oh my gosh, confirmation. I think I screenshotted that. But anyways, okay. So it's so interesting because it's like everywhere that I go, like now when I travel, I see a store called Saturn or I see a street called Saturn. So you guys, they literally worship Saturn. Saturn rules this realm, okay? And Saturn is also Satan, okay? And that's the energetic structure that is around the earth realm. So I figured that out by figuring out someone's rising sign by their Saturn transit. And I was like, Saturn is ruling everything. That's why I was saying to you guys earlier in this video that it doesn't matter what's going on in terms of your Saturn return because you're always in a Saturn transit. So the whole goal here, in my own opinion, allegedly, is to break down this energetic structure, okay? Because that also basically controls the reincarnation loop, the reincarnation cycle. Like, that's all Saturn, okay? So it's so interesting that you mentioned that because I found out about those people after I had that discovery, and it's all on my threads, okay? Because what I love about threads is I put my ideas out there, and there's timestamps when it came through, and then the information started pouring in, okay, in terms of like the other people who were talking about it. It's so fascinating. Hey, hey, Irish Ryan, how are you doing? What's new? Hey, Beatrice. Yes, I will share it. You said, does a divine masculine experience similar at all? Are they aware I can't be the only one who got cursed? You said sometimes twin flames or karmic soulmates are exactly, that's all that it is. They're meant to help you evolve and heal your wounds. Okay. Whatever the label is, they're meant to help you evolve and come into your power. Okay. And so you can maybe potentially be in a healthy relationship in the future. You said it's a spiritual connection. It's meant to trigger you to look within and heal. Exactly. It's like a giant mirror exposing your shadows. Because the more that I learn about astrology, the more that I see when people think somebody's their twin flame or they have this huge connection to the person, there's always Moon Pluto going on, Mars Pluto going on, Venus Neptune. Okay. More than anything, I see Mars, Pluto, Venus, Neptune aspects. Okay. And it's usually like Mars, Pluto conjunct, or just like any really Pluto or A house synastry, or even 12 house sometimes. And then the Venus, Neptune. Okay. I've seen it a lot with the square and synastry. These people think this is their one true love, you know, and then they don't want to let it go. But what it is, it's a vortex that sucks you in for shadow work. Okay. Because even constantly obsessing over this person is a form of codependency. Okay. You don't have to be codependent on someone in the real like reality. You can be codependent on a thought or an idea. Okay. How are you, Beatrice? What's new? You said then move on and focus on your growth and happiness. Exactly. Honestly, you know, okay, here's what I'm going to say about like the divine masculine. The whole way the divine masculine energy, like even within the self, comes into their power is through the divine feminine coming into their power first. Okay. So the feminine energy has to come into their power first, but we are so far from that. Like we are at like pure degeneracy in this collective. So I'm just like, if you actually see what's happening out here in the streets, you're like, okay, like when people talk about like 5D and I'm like, have you guys looked out the window? Like, have you guys seen what is going on? Like we are at pure degeneracy. Everything is hypersexualized, and that is nowhere near, okay, the energy where everyone's like, oh, we're gonna go into 5D and you are like, that's nowhere near. We are like literally like at the lowest chakras. Like I know we had the dark ages back in the day, but to me right now, because there's such an attack on the feminine energy in terms of hypersexuality, it's like the feminine energy is just like, first of all, scattered. Second of all, like the feminine energy doesn't even know the role. Do you know what I mean? That's why the feminine energy has to come into their power first, because they don't even know what they're doing, because it's all inverted. So the feminine energy is chasing the masculine, but you're not meant to chase the masculine, okay? The feminine energy has to come into their power, lead the masculine energy into their heart space. But you constantly chasing this person, or, you know, being in these situations where you have no boundaries, or you're like the side person, or you're waiting for the karmic to like leave the, you know, your person, all these things, like that is not you being in any divine energy. That's you not having strong self-worth. Okay. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's what it is. So you have to work on the self-worth, because why would you even want someone who isn't fully available? So that means also, that's not everything to explore. That means part of you is also not emotionally available. Okay. So why are you not emotionally available? That's the thing. So it's just like, there's so much to explore, right? So anyways. You said you think humanity has come a long way from the dark ages. I think it's pretty dark right now. I mean, from those dark ages where they were burning witches, yes, but it's still pretty dark right now. You said yours triggered you to heal yourself. You did so much work and you're better for it. Good. You said now you're dating other people and in a much healthier place. Exactly. You want to come out of the lower chakras, like whatever like triggers you guys, whether it's a person, and that's why I try to stay away from these terms, because I don't think that there's only one person. Like I think there could be a person that triggers you, okay? Kind of like you going through this like whole spiritual awakening, like yes, they could trigger you, but like you have to explore, like even in terms of relationships, because I have a video on here also under my metaphysical playlist called Love, Dating, and Narcissus. Okay, not narcissists, narcissus, like the Greek mythological character. Okay, where the person fell in love with their reflection. It's like, in terms of relationships, I just feel like, and it's just my own opinion at this point in time, like I just feel like it's like a form, okay, because the thing is, you guys, and I don't know, this might be out there, but I just feel like we have to explore within the collective the narcissism that exists within the human, okay? Because everyone has a little bit of it taking place. So I feel like sometimes relationships are like you trying to get that reflected back to you from another person. Because a lot of the time, have you guys ever noticed like how couples look alike, how people are into people who look like them, or sometimes not, because like depends like how they feel about themselves. That's kind of like probably what they're going to be like, let's say, into. Or even like on an energetic level, like people feel like an energetic match. It's like the person is there to validate your existence, okay? And it's like, why do you need this external validation? Because I have another video, okay, that I need to do on the process of individuation, okay? Because that's what I've been thinking about recently. I finally found the term for it, but I've been thinking about it before. But the term for it is the process of individuation. That's part of the way you exit this realm. You have to separate from the group, okay? You can't be in the group. And that's why a lot of the time people look up to, let's say, celebrities or prominent figures, because those people have gone through that process of individuation. They have separated from the group, but that's a whole process to separate from the group. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's like very Aquarius energy. It's very much Aquarius energy. Which one? I will share all of them. I'll rewatch this and then I'll share all the videos that I mentioned. Like I'll rewatch it after it's done and then I'll put it in the description box below, because there's a lot of things, you guys, like that I have obviously contemplated and recorded on this channel, so you guys can explore it to see, and maybe can assist you guys in energetically freeing yourselves out of these situations so you're not obsessing over one person, because that's just a distraction. Everything down here is a distraction to throw you off your path. And you'll see within people's natal charts, like very few people are actually meant to be in these units, okay? And that's maybe also contrary to popular belief, but you'll see that in people's natal charts where they're actually meant to operate as a unit with another person. Different people have different purposes, right? If you have someone in your life, like I'm not saying, here's the thing, okay? And it's not like one or the other. I'm not saying like go and be on your own and have nobody around you. Do you know what I mean? But I'm just saying, like, you don't have to put all your focus and energy on a romantic relationship. Do you know what I mean? To the point where you're giving your power away, you're compromising your beliefs, you aren't listening to your path or whatever it is, right? Individuation. Yes, I will get to that one. The process of individuation. It's like, it's basically the process that has to take place for you to become separate, like gain consciousness, right? Because up until this point in time, okay, I'll give you guys like a preview, okay, in terms of what I've been thinking about. But up until this point in time, the collective has been operating as a unit with each other, right? It's been very much tribal, like families and all these things. And that comes from way back in the day, because that's what was needed to survive, okay, to operate in a unit. So anytime you try to separate from the group, okay, whether it's the family, do your own thing, whether it's, you know, the group think, like what the group is thinking, the belief systems, society's belief systems, anytime you try to separate it, actually what it's going to incite in you is the fear of death, okay, which is most fears. But the whole reason that comes up is because back in the day when people operated in a group, if you separated from the group, you'd be taken out, right? That's how they used to survive. So we're actually, and this is what the age of Aquarius is meant to be, okay? And we kind of have a preview of that with the Pluto in Aquarius, right? But we're going into the age of Aquarius, and it's like, basically the age of Aquarius is like the development of the soul, right? Where the soul, okay, separates from the group and they are able to have their own identity. That's what Aquarius is, okay? You're able to do your own thing, you separate from the group and you do your own thing, okay? And, you know, you have your own thoughts, your own belief systems, and you don't care what others think, okay? Most people care what others think, and that's what's holding most people back, okay? And that's why a lot of people look up to people who are in these prominent positions. Maybe that's another reason someone wants to be famous. If we really explore deep, okay, down within, you know, back to what one of you guys was saying earlier, maybe it's this process of individuation that you maybe want to go through, right? To separate from the group, okay? To do your own thing, to be your own person, to be authentic, okay? To do your own thing. And I feel like, this is my own opinion, when you are able to separate from that, that's going to be connected to exiting this realm as well, right? Because then nothing's going to pull you back down into the reincarnation loop. So that's part of the story too, my most recent discovery in terms of thinking in my mind, okay? Oh, good. Well, thank you for being part of this channel. You said everyone is sugarcoating things and you get why, but I elegantly deliver the honesty you're grateful for this moment. I have always been very blunt. And the thing is, I just don't like when people sell hopium, okay, to other people, which is 90% of people, okay? It keeps you trapped and it keeps you stuck, okay? And you don't actually solve the issue, and you're, you know, it's like a band-aid solution, right? And it's unfortunate because that's the time that we're living in. Like, it is capitalism. Yes, people want to make money. And again, those people hook into wounds that other people have. And that's how people get taken advantage of. That's how cults start, okay? That's how narcissists, okay? You know, energy vampires, like whatever way, shape, form you want to look at it. Maybe not everyone is a narcissist, but people have a lot of these qualities because that's just the way the energetic structure is. They hook into whatever your issue is, and then they feed into that, okay? And then they pour, you know, like the hopium in there is really what it is. So that's what I'm kind of trying to explain here, okay, is you want to come out of that, because you end up being in the same loop and that doesn't really get you anywhere. Like, for example, I know someone, I was just thinking about this yesterday. I know someone who is like a lifelong learner, which is fine. Like, it's nice to be a learner, but it's like this person, and I can see the shadow, and I've explained this to them too, okay? But what can you do if someone's not ready for the information? Like this individual, you know, has a self-worth thing going on, okay? Where it's like they are always buying courses, or they're always learning from someone, or they're always, you know, getting someone, like they're always giving their power away to another person to teach them something, which is fine. It's nice to learn. I'm not saying, see, it's not one or the other. It's good to learn, but I'm just saying if it's a pattern to the point where it's like you are in this lifelong student role, okay? It's like it becomes a self-worth issue, okay? It becomes an issue where you don't trust in the self, okay? Where you almost need this person to always tell you and guide you, and we're coming out of that as a collective, okay? So that's why I kind of encourage you guys to think for yourselves, okay? Let's see. You said, hey, Melissa, how are you doing? I'm so glad that you all made it to my earliest live ever. You said, what do I think healthy sexuality looks like in a divine feminine person? Like, is it okay to take pride in your body without leading with your sexual energy? Well, I was just thinking about that today, okay? Like, I was thinking, why is everything over-sexualized to begin with? Like, why, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if this was actually ever a thing, but I'm sure that at one point in time, people walked around naked. You know what I mean? Like, there wasn't clothes. Like, that's what animals do, right? And that's why I get so annoyed when people are like, oh, like, animals. I'm like, you know, we've evolved from animals. You know what I mean? Like, I usually use that as an example where I'm like, if we were still like in the animal phase, we would literally be still walking around naked. But anyways, it's like, why did it get to that point? Like, how do we get here? Why is everything so over-sexualized? Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, I don't know. It's just like really interesting. So that would have to be explored, like why that is a thing, okay? In terms of healthy sexuality, I think it's going to look different for different people, but definitely like you guys have to understand the energetic repercussions of what's going on with sexual energy. I talk about that on my threads too, okay? Once upon a time, and this is my opinion, the sexual energy was being used to transmute other people's stuff, okay? But now what's going on is like there's a lot of like dark energy floating around. So when you engage in the sexual energy, you open up your energetic field, okay? And if you're not, you know, in some sort of energetic container where the energy is protected between the two people, you could absorb all of not only that person's dark stuff, but whatever is floating around, okay? Because there's a lot of darkness around, okay, in terms of like entities and so on and so forth. So I talked about that on my previous lives too, where when you get to that heightened point, okay, so the CLIMAX, you open your energetic field up, okay? I just think it's a waste of energy to do that mindlessly when you could be using that to create, okay, and manifest. So that's kind of what I have to say about that. I'd have to do a whole video on that. There's so much to say if I was really to get into it. You said you think the woo and naive spiritualists will be the most dumbfounded when the new earth doesn't manifest itself. Exactly. You wonder what they will do, the woo, hold on. You wonder what they'll do to the woo and spiritual leaders for deceiving them. But that's the wildest thing. You know, that's what's wild to me. I'm like, when is the collective gonna get it? Because people are so still fear-based where they're like always trying to put like a date onto something. Does that make sense? They're like, oh, by September 21st or by November 4th or whatever. Like they're always trying to put a date to something. And it's like, have you not seen that this never manifests? And that's what's wild to me because nobody calls these people out. Like, I don't understand. Do you know what I mean? Like people are in such a Neptunian fog where they're like, I think it's two truths and a lie. Like I think because those people are right about some things, nobody like pays attention to the thing that they got wrong, for example. So I'm not sure, like they still might like not like say anything for deceiving them. Do you know what I mean? They still might be in this Neptunian fog. Like it's very much like a Neptunian fog, okay, energetically that takes place because they're like in that Neptunian energy. It's very much like shadow 12th house, okay, is really what it is. They're not grounded. And I'm just curious to know because again, I've been in this world for a long time, like, you know, learning about these things. Because back in the day, there used to be one Facebook page. It was called Spirit Science. And I would like read about things on there. Now there's so many things, right? Obviously so much information and misinformation. And it's like people just want to feel good, I guess. And I guess they're not realistic. I don't know. But I'm just like, how are you not realistic? Like, do you not see what's going on outside? Like, I'm still confused. Like, I'm like, do you think someone's going to come in a spaceship and save you? Like, those are all the programs that the collective has to get out of. They have to get out of the savior program that someone's going to come save them. You're meant to save yourself, okay? And that's in relationships too, okay? Because it comes from the macro to the micro, okay? Microcosm being like your everyday life and the macro being on the world scale, okay? That's what the collective has to get out of because I'm not going to get into the whole rant about the anti-C. Okay, I talked about that in my previous live, so check those lives out, okay, where I talked about that, because that's what everyone's being prepped for, okay? They're being prepped for the savior, okay? But it's like, that is always the same pattern that's happened in the past. So it's like, Where is the pattern recognition? Like, what is going on? Okay. So it's this. Oh my gosh, do you know them? No way. You know spirit science? I don't think it'll be, no, in my opinion, I don't think it's going to be Jesus. It'll be, okay, so what they do, I talked about this in my previous lives, okay? What they do is anytime they want to usher in the new age, they need to destruct all the old religions. So they're going to bring some sort of anti-C character, and then they're going to usher in the savior. Okay. So it might not be Jesus. Like it could be like a random person. They're going to be like, okay, yeah, we got to the end of the books. It's done now. You know, it's played out. And, you know, there's this like boogeyman. And now there is this person who's going to save everybody. And now we're going to believe these religions. Okay. Or whatever, the new form or new type of religion or whatever it is. Okay. So I don't think it's going to be like, I don't believe that. That's just my own opinion. And to be honest, I wasn't raised religiously. So I know a lot of people think like Jesus is coming back. Some people are going to talk about like Christ consciousness, but I find a lot of the new age too, when they talk about Christ consciousness, is rooted in Christianity or like Christian mysticism or like that. You know what I mean? So I'm just like very hesitant to believe that too. You know what I mean? When people are like Christ consciousness, like I'm very skeptical, okay, about that. So I don't think there's going to be like a Jesus character coming through. I think they're going to try to fake one, of course, okay, but I don't think it'll be a Jesus person. I think, allegedly, in my opinion, it'll be the person that's going to be the person that ushers in the new religion, okay, or like the new belief system that's going to be connected to basically like TRANS, humanism, okay? That's my own opinion, but that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. People are always tricked into perpetually waiting. Exactly. That is the other energy. And that's the thing. So wild, Koala Mama. I'm pretty sure you just like joined. But I was talking about like the whole scam of twin flames too. And that's the other thing in there too, where again, you're put into this waiting energy. Like you're putting your whole life on hold for someone that you know is your one true love. Like that's what I mean. Like you need to explore like who, like why do you need this in your life? Like, you know what I mean? Like you need to be like, why are you looking for, like what are you looking for actually? Okay. And how can you invite that into your life? Okay. You said Christ consciousness can mean like focus on loving kindness. Yeah, exactly. I think that that's like, it's a metaphor always. Okay. It's always a metaphor. But do I think like some people are going to be like, oh, you know, there's going to be, you know, the solar FLASH. I don't think that's going to be a one-time event. I think at this point in time, because we've gone through like RESETS, okay, in the past, where whoever is controlling this thing, they like do something to like start everything from the beginning, because there's literally been videos where people show like technology that they had back in the day, right, when it was supposed to be so ancient. So it's like we're on this loop, okay? So there's that part of the story. So I think when people think of the solar FLSH, okay, that is actually whoever is running this like show or game, like they press something to like reset everything and go to the beginning. Like I think that's part of it. I think the other thing that's going on here, I don't think it's one event. I know people talk about one event, okay? If you ask me, it's been many events, okay, up until this point in time. Like we're going through the breakdown of the energetic structure, okay? Because the energetic structure is breaking and the veil is lifting, the people who are in control, allegedly, in my opinion, are going to try to, you know, create something to, you know, grasp onto control is really what it is. Now, for the people who are unaware, they're going to follow that, okay? And that's the struggle. So that's why we need to have the awareness, so we don't go down that pipeline, because it's a very slippery slope, okay? Into the whole TRANS humanism, okay? And that whole world, okay? Like merging with computers, basically. The whole reason they want to merge with computers, and I talked about this in the earlier part of this live, is because they don't want to fully exit this realm, okay? Because if they exit this realm, then they have to face the karmic repercussions for their actions, okay? So immortality is actually Satanism, okay? That's just my own opinion, allegedly. I talk about that on my threads, so check out my threads, you guys. It's Barbara, so BARBARAJSC. That's also my Instagram, okay? Exactly. See, Jane, beware of readers who tell you your twin flame is coming back soon. That's not a divine entity. It's always this. And that's the other thing. And that's wild, because they talk about false prophets in these books. Okay. And I can see what they mean by that. This is what I mean by two truths and a lie. Okay. All these people who are keeping you stuck in hopium, okay, you have probably developed a codependency energy to these people. Because here's the thing, you guys. Okay, this is what you guys have to understand, okay? Because this is like a little bit deeper. Okay, you guys have to understand what the ego is truly, okay? And what happens. The ego is like your identity, and it's usually something that keeps you feeling comfortable and it keeps you feeling safe, okay? So a lot of the time people create their ego, okay, their solar plexus, through external things, okay? You don't want to do that. You want to get that information internally. That's what I mean. Like, you have to be able to validate yourself internally, okay? Most people can't do that. So they create their identity on external things, okay? So as soon as one thing is spinning out of control, it triggers the ego. But instead of people being in that moment of discomfort and pushing through that feeling to get to the other side, okay, so this can happen, let's say you lose a job, let's say you go through a breakup. This is why a lot of the time people break up and get back together. They can't like get over that hump, okay, of the discomfort during that unknown period, because the ego, the identity, has created such a strong identity through that thing, which is usually external, which could be the person, which could be the relationship, and so on and so forth, okay? So a lot of the time when people are, let's say, engaging in these codependent relationships, even with tarot readers like the twin flame or whoever's coming back, it's like you have to explore and you have to be like, why do you even want this person to come back? Because it's like, if they're not currently in your life, then, and they're not pursuing you and they're not with you, why, like, you have to look at it at a self-worth level. Like, why are you accepting that? That's what I want to know. Like, why are you accepting that behavior? So you're in this waiting energy for what? Like, what are you waiting for? You're wasting your time. That's really what it is, okay? And a lot of you guys have to understand that time is money, okay? Because I know one of you guys earlier was talking about, like, asking me about, like, working all the time. But it is what it is. Like, time is money. And it's like, you know, we have a certain amount of time down here on our plane. So it's like, if you're constantly focused on this person, your energy is being siphoned and you're being distracted maybe from what you're actually meant to be doing, okay? So if you're in that waiting energy, okay? So it's because you've created your identity through this now, okay? So people, like everyone, has to be very careful to see what are they creating their ego and their identity through, okay? Because when that thing is no longer in your life, you're gonna have the pull to go back to that thing, okay? Whether it's the job, whether it is the colleagues, whether it is the friends, the lover, whoever, okay? But you have to push through that feeling of discomfort when you end it, okay? You're gonna have that buffer zone where you're like disoriented almost energetically, okay? And that's where the energetic collapse happens, okay? You have to push through that and get to the other side, okay? And that's how you overcome it, okay? Is really what it is. So that's the struggle with the ego, because the ego can be so strong. And that's why sometimes people don't want to leave things, situations, okay? Cities, countries, people, jobs, whatever. Because you've created your identity, okay, through that thing. And a lot of people don't have the strength to be in that period of limbo, okay, where it's like, what's going on? You know what I mean? You have to kind of push through that. And then when you push through it, you develop the solar plexus, the confidence in the self, okay? It's no longer on the external person, okay? So then whoever and whatever comes into your life, you're like, okay, that's fine. You know, it's there or it's not there, like whatever, okay? Okay, hope that makes sense. You said, do psychics actually use demons to see? You said, do psychics actually use demons to see a person's life and watch them go through Earth because demons roam this Earth? I don't think that they can fully do that. I mean, here's the thing. You have to figure out how to energetically protect yourself so you're not in their line of vision, okay? I don't think people can just like remotely view into you, okay? Unless you have some sort of cord to that person. Does that make sense? So it's like, let's say you've allowed this person into your life for whatever reason, okay? There's like an energetic cord, so there's the opening, and that's the struggle, because that's how people also come into your life to quote unquote throw you off your path, okay? Because there's this opening, and that's why I talk about the wounds. You have to see what are the wounds, because that's going to be the cord that connects you to this person. So because the cord is there between you and this person, there's like the opening for them to like basically like spy energetically, right? Like it's happening from the astral realm. So it's like, if you feel like that's taking place, like a random person, I don't think can do that, right? But if you do feel it, then you have to figure out how to protect your energetic field to get out of their line of vision. A lot of the time, it's so interesting you ask this, okay? A lot of the time, because this is what happens down here on this airplane all the time, okay? There's someone who comes through, anybody with some sort of purpose, then the dark entity comes into their life, usually operating through a person, okay? The dark entity operates through a person and then they latch like onto them. The best example I can give is Selena Quintanilla, okay, and her unaliver, okay, which I'm not going to mention right now. I have a video on this on my second channel, you guys, called Barbara Talks Some More, okay? So basically what happens is the dark energy comes through, and the dark energy is coming through to throw the person off their path. This is why you guys have to be very careful about people who kind of put you on a pedestal, people who, you know, like worship you, people who are jealous, like that type of energy, because like they secretly want to be you, right? And when they're in that energy, they're willing to do anything, like in this situation that I just mentioned, okay? I'm not going to mention their name again. So what happens a lot of the time is when you leave this person, okay, or escape them, okay, because a lot of the time it's past life enemies, okay, coming through to throw you off your path. Like that's just the way that I see it psychically. You kind of go sideways. That's the way that I see it psychically. So if they were in your life, for example, it's kind of like, I guess these days people are going to call it like monitoring spirit. Again, I feel like these terms are overused, but it's very true, okay? But you have to have allowed them into your life, okay? And I'm not trying to put fear out there, but this happens all the time. And this is connected to the reincarnation loop, because this person comes into your life to siphon your energy and to throw you off your path is really what it is, okay? So basically, when you quote unquote escape this person on an energetic level, you go sideways, okay, is really what it is. I've seen that psychically, like, for example, when people cross out, they go sideways. So it's hard to explain, like, it's just like more so psychically that I see it, where it's like you're not in the line of vision for these darker energies to come to you anymore, is really what it is. So it's really interesting because they might still try to come in, right, in one way, shape, or form. But it's like, this could be in the waking reality too, okay? This is like literally in the waking. Let's say you leave a situation, you know, you break up with that person, that friend, that job, so on and so forth, like the person that had the dark energy. When you leave them, you close the energy, right? Maybe you have to cut the cord and so on and so forth from them, but you go sideways energetically so they can't see you, because people can sometimes hook into your energy on the astral too. Does that make sense? I hope that that makes sense. You said that's why it's important to never label yourself or marry ideology. Exactly. That's why I stay away from labels. Like, you guys, I don't even consider myself an astrologer, okay? I know I do astrology. Like, even when I meet people, they're like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, I do astrology, okay? But I've not once said that I am an astrologer, okay? I know that's gonna sound wild, but I just, like, I don't like labels, okay? I just like to have the freedom to be able to change my mind and do something else. Do you know what I mean? So it's this. Obsessive friends or ex. You're asking, how do I do that? You have to cut the cord with the person, okay? You have to leave their vicinity. So if they see you all the time, like, let's say, you know, earlier, like I was telling you guys, like when I was talking about my work experiences, like, for example, when my colleagues, like when it would get to the toxic point where they'd like always want to know what I'm doing, okay? That's that dark energy manifesting through people, okay? Oh, where'd you go? What are you doing? So on and so forth, okay? Sometimes you have to leave the vicinity. Let's say you have to quit the job, switch the job, leave the person. Like, you have to leave the situation where they kind of have this constant access to you, okay? And sometimes you have to energetically cut the cord. Now, I know you can listen to meditations. I don't do any of that. I just do it in my mind. I think it in my head, okay? So it's up to you to see what works for you. But yeah, so you go sideways energetically, okay? So they can't hook into your energy field anymore. And then you have to see, because sometimes you yourself could reattach the cords to that person. If you're constantly thinking about them, sometimes, you know, checking their social media, like you're reactivating that vibration. Does that make sense? That's why it's a struggle these days with social media to detach fully sometimes, because you always have access to the people, right? But again, it's within the self. Like, you have to be stronger internally is really what it is. And you have to know the benefit ultimately is really what it is. But people struggle with that, okay? Let's see. I heard about that, Bryce, but I'm not sure what's going on with that. You said, Pink Vader, what does it mean to push through? Explain to you. Yeah, so you have to, okay, so what I was trying to say with the push through is exactly this, because you asked this after, maybe I explained it already, okay, because I'm just seeing your comment now. But it's like anytime you leave something or end something, okay? Because the struggle is, first of all, it's a struggle to leave or end the thing because you've created an identity through that thing. Does that make sense? Okay. It's connected to the ego, the solar plexus chakra, okay? And this is what happens to people who don't create their identity from within, okay? You have to know who you are truly on that soul level, okay? Otherwise, you're always going to externalize the energy on the job, the status, the name, the label. I met someone once who was a doctor, okay? And this person, like, was not liking their job and so on and so forth. And I knew it. I said to them, and I was like, you went into that profession because you wanted the label of the doctor, didn't you? And they're like, how'd you know? I'm like, I just know. You know what I mean? So sometimes you have to separate yourself, okay, from whatever it is, okay? Because those are external things. Those are temporary things. That's not the soul, okay? The soul isn't a doctor. The soul is the soul. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I'm trying to say. So when you go through, and I guess this can be called an ego death sometimes, okay? Sometimes, you know, people call this in psychology, they call it narcissistic collapse. I'm not saying that, you know, people are narcissists, but to me, the ego and the shadow is very closely connected to narcissism or that energy, okay? And that's just my own opinion, and I'm not a psychologist, and that's my disclaimer, okay? So when you go through the ego death, okay, you separate from that thing, okay? So this is who you thought you were, okay? And this happens to people. Oh, I worked at this job for 15 years. I did this career. And the more you invest time into it, it's like you feel like, again, you can't leave it, okay? So this is why you guys have to start testing yourselves, okay, to be able to exit the situation, okay, is really what it is. So let's say you leave it, okay, you leave that thing. So this is the identity. This was you and the identity. You leave it now. You're trying to move forward, okay? You're going to go through this buffer, okay, period of time where you will feel pulled back to that thing, okay? So you'll feel pulled back to the person, back to the job, okay? You'll feel pulled back to the city, the country, you know, whatever, okay? You'll feel pulled back, okay? Unless you're distracted. Sometimes you're distracted, so this might happen after, like, let's say it's a job, you got a new job, maybe you don't feel pulled back, right? Because maybe you're distracted with the new job. But let's say there's a period of time where you made the conscious decision, okay? And this sometimes happens for people. You can do it consciously, or if it's time to go, the universe will push you out of it. That's when you feel that discomfort bubble, okay? Where you're like, oh, I miss this person, because you romanticize. That's what you guys have to understand. The mind plays tricks, okay? It remembers the good and it romanticizes you. Oh, I miss that person. I miss that job. I miss that city, whatever, okay? You have to push through that buffer time, okay? And that's how you get to the other side, is really what it is. So that's what I'm saying. You have to push through the discomfort, okay, of being in that state of limbo, not knowing what's next, where you're going to go, whatever, okay? So that's kind of what I was trying to explain. Hey, 3 Heavens Healing, how are you doing? Let's see. You said you are whatever you feel like today, basically. I'm answering astrology questions. Yeah, definitely check it out from the beginning. The eclipse is hitting. Yeah, I felt it yesterday. I felt it through the everyday people. They're very like irritable. It was very interesting. Hey, Lauren Elena, how are you doing? You said he obsessively stalks. But see, that's what's weird. Like, why is he stalking and not talking to you? Like, that's like, why is that going on? Like, what's going on there? What else are you saying in here? Yeah, the eclipse. It's interesting. I didn't feel it in the moment, to be honest, because I was like, okay. But honestly, I think it depends on your chart too. Like if you have, oh my gosh, Esperanza, hello. How are you? I haven't seen you in so long. How's it going? How is it going? This is my early live. You guys, thank you for being a part of the early live. You said, do dark entities who attach to themselves to narcs go after healers? They do. They want to throw you off your path. I miss you too. I miss you too. Thank you for being here. They go after healers. Yeah, they go after the people who have a lot of light. Okay, I have a video on this too, you guys. Okay, check out my metaphysical playlist, you guys, because I have so much about everything, okay? I have one where I talk about narcissism, okay, on a metaphysical level, and what happens with them. Narcissists, a lot of the time, are people who have experienced, and this is just my opinion, allegedly, because there's 2 different types. There's people who are actually like not human and they're actual demons, okay? So that's one part of the story. I feel like those people will maybe go more into like sociopath vibes, okay? And then there's the other part of the story where there's the people who have experienced so much like powerlessness through their lives that they're stuck in their lower chakras and they're disconnected from the heart space, okay? And then they might go into vices and so on and so forth to open up their energetic vessel, and now entities start hooking into their field and operating through them, okay? So because a lot of the time these people are powerless, okay, you know, they are operating, they're empty, right? They're operating out of their lower chakras. Those are the people that you'll see chasing the status, you know, all these things, okay? The money, this, you know, all these things, okay? So those people operate out of their lower 3 chakras. And, you know, you guys, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wanting a lot of money and all these things. I'm just trying to say, like, get to the root of the issue, okay? Or what is it that you want? That's all that I'm saying here. And also, like, if that's all you want and you're putting so much, like, you're creating an external identity through that thing, that's where you need to start questioning, okay? So anyways, back to the narcs, okay? So they're operating out of their lower 3 chakras, okay? They're in survival, a lot of them. And it's all, that's a struggle. And that's why it's like a struggle to like see why people operate the way that they do, because you'll see that most people who operate in their shadows are actually operating out of survival, okay? But anyways, it doesn't mean that you have to be their savior, okay? Anyways, so they're operating out of the lower 3 chakras. They're cut off from the heart space and above, okay? And that's why this society does a disservice to people in general, because they, you know, cut people off from their emotions, okay? And the emotions is the only internal compass we have down here because it's connected to your intuition, okay? And basically like what you're meant to be doing, okay? So that's the heart space and above, okay? When you go into the heart space and above. So what happens with the narcs is because they don't have any life force energy, or it's very low, and that's why a lot of them tend to be sex addicts too, because they don't have life force energy. So they're constantly looking for someone to siphon, okay? And the fastest way you can get into someone's energetic field is to hook into their sexual energy field, okay? Because that's how you get access to all their chakras, okay? And I'm not trying to put fear out there, it's just what happens. So that's why a lot of the time, these people try to trick people, okay, into the bedroom, into trying to make that happen as fast as possible, and so on and so forth, okay? So keep that in mind, okay? Because they're trying to get into your energy field because they want to siphon your energy, because now when you merge to them, okay, and you don't know what's going on, you are now, and especially if you don't know yourself, okay? If you don't know yourself and who you are now, you're not picking up on all their energy, okay? Whatever's going on with them, and you're now internalizing it as your own, okay? So what ends up happening in these situations, the quote unquote healer person with the narc, okay, you know, tries to help them, tries to heal them, they don't realize this person is an empty vessel. So the way that I see it psychically, it's like the engine in a car that's broken, that's you're trying to turn on, and it's like running, and it's that sound, you know? And that's what happens to the quote unquote healer person, high vibrational person, like whatever way, shape, form you want to look at it, because your question was about a healer, but it's anybody who's in this energy, okay? They're now being depleted because they're trying to fix something that, it's not that it can't be fixed, it's you can't fix them, okay? They have to do it themselves, okay? They have to go through a lot of inner work to clear that, okay? And sometimes for some people, it might not be in this lifetime, and it just is what it is, okay? So that's the struggle. So then the healer person gets drained, drains themselves, all of this, okay? And that's why they are the perfect target for the narc energy, because the narc energy is basically now, especially if you're unaware, okay? And if you're unaware of your energy and how to use your energy to create for yourself, and if you're codependent, okay? Again, the theme of this chat, you will now pour into this person, and that's how they manifest. They're using your energy. And I talk about that on my threads, okay? So you guys have to understand that there are people out there who want to use your energy, okay, to manifest for themselves, okay? That should annoy you. You know what I mean? Exactly. Especially if you don't know yourself, okay? Especially if you don't know yourself, because now you don't know, like, you think this is your stuff. You think this is your energy. You know what I mean? You think you're feeling this way because it's you. No, it's because of them, okay? And I'm not trying to take the responsibility away from you, because it's your responsibility as the quote unquote high vibrational healer person to learn yourself, to have strong boundaries, to know who you are, what are your likes, wants, needs, and desires, what are your wounds, why did you allow that person into your life to begin with, okay? So I'm tying this back to what I was saying even earlier. Is it a need for validation? Is it, you know, a fear of loneliness? Is it a fear of, like, what, how did this person get into your life? How did they sneak their way into your life, okay? Because what they did, because they're intuitive, okay? But in the shadow, they hook into one of your wounds, okay? Into one of your soft spots or triggers. Maybe you felt bad for them, whatever it is, okay? They hooked into that, okay? And that's what they're feeding, and that's how they're keeping you around. What's going on? You said the codependent and the narcissist are attracted to people who carry a lot of light. Exactly. They lack self-awareness. Exactly. You said you wonder if that's why there's a lot of being on the DL. Okay, so the DL people, one Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? No. Yes. Okay. Okay, good. Okay. Okay, so back to what I was saying earlier, okay? This happens when I get a call and then it does something to the sound. Because I went to like voicemail or whatever. Okay, we're back. Okay, back to what I was saying. I was talking about the DL people. Okay. I'm curious to know if it'll work, because sometimes on the replay it works. So I'm curious to know if it'll work or if it won't work. Okay, so what I was talking about the DL people. You said you have to gua sha. Oh, nice. And other things as you listen. And oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you're here. Good. Okay, did you guys hear anything that I said about the DL people? I'll tell you guys again, okay? What I was saying was, let me go back up to see. Oh, you said you were wondering if that's why there is a lot of people who are on the DL. Okay, so what I was saying with the DL people, the issue with the DL people is you guys have to understand the core issue, and this is like the theme of the live today. You have to get to the core emotion and the core issue of what's happening, okay? The core issue for the DL person is actually shame, okay? So for them, anytime you guys, this is anyone in the world, okay, you hide something. There's a difference. You're private, okay, I understand. But if you're hiding, if you're living a double life, okay, if you're hiding yourself, all these things, it's connected to the feeling of shame, okay? So these people have to explore and be like, why are they shameful for being DL or for being attracted to, let's say, both genders or one of them and then the other one, okay? And then the other struggle, what I was mentioning earlier too, is there's those super intense shadow people, right? Like they're in their shadow, right? If they are DL, where they're siphoning someone's energy, okay? They're siphoning their energy and then they're doing whatever they want to do on the side. And that's not good either, right? Because you're an energy vampire at that point in time, right? Obviously, it's not going to be a lot of them, but that's the main, like in a nutshell, that's what I was saying. If you're hiding something or hiding an aspect of yourself, it's usually connected to shame. And then you have to explore within the self and be like, where is the shame coming from? Why do you feel like you wouldn't be accepted? Okay. And as usual, I'm not a psychologist, but then you have to explore and be like, what happened in your childhood where you weren't accepted by the parents? Okay. Because it starts with them and then it perpetuates throughout your life. Okay. So that's what's going on. DL is down low. DL individuals are people who, let's say, have one partner and they're, let's say, like straight with that partner, and then they go off and they do sexual things with other people who, I guess, yeah, DL would be if they are like with the same gender, I'm guessing. Yeah, DL would be with the same gender, where it's like you're pretending to be straight, but then you're doing things with the same gender. And I just find it interesting because it's like a lot of them are going to justify it. I just find it so interesting because then they're going to be like, oh, it is because they think in their minds, like if they are the ones that are giving to the other person, that they aren't like gay. I don't know. It's just like such an interesting thought process. But anyways, the mind will try to justify it, right? Because they have so much shame. So they have to come to the terms with the fact that maybe they're bisexual, maybe they're actually gay, like, you know, and they have to explore and be like, what is the issue with being that? Do you know, like, what is the problem with being bisexual or being gay? Like, I don't understand, you know? Fear of rejection, yeah, and they have to explore that within. But usually those types of people, like people who are hiding, okay? People who are hiding can be very dangerous to other people because if the secret gets out, you got to watch out, okay? If the secret gets out, because that can be very much danger zone and they're not ready for it. Or what also is unfortunate for them as well is like they can be controlled by that, okay? So they can be controlled by people around them. And this happens so much, you guys. I've heard so many stories, okay? Where it's like they're going to have a full-blown family and they're going to be doing all these things on the side. So, yes. You said you're exploring poly and you want to be authentic. As long as you can be true to yourself and honest with the people around you, like that's all you can do. You know what I mean? You said it's interesting because you think it's mostly men who are down low. Yeah, and like why is that? That's because of the hatred towards the feminine energy and the feminine energy within, right? And also this is actually really interesting. I don't even know if I can say this on here, okay? Let me try to say it in this way. I heard this from somebody else and it's stuck in my mind. This is one of my friends who said this. One of my friends basically said that they carry a lot of, like, there is something to do with like, okay, because with them, okay, the way that they see sexual energy is like, it's a domination thing. So for them, they think that as long as they're the one who is doing it to another person, right? Like they're not the one who's receiving. Okay, let me say that. Because my friend was basically saying like they have some sort of like negative connotation with the whole concept of being the one who's receiving, which if we connect it back, it's like their internalized like hate towards the feminine energy, or just like the whole concept of receiving. Like it's really interesting if you like really dig deep, like what's actually going on here, right? So a lot of the time the person who is DL, okay, in their mind, they think if they're the one who's giving to the other person, that doesn't make them gay. Like it's really fascinating, okay? So yes, but honestly, at the end of the day, like I personally think sexuality is on a spectrum, is really what it is. So it's this, but I think because they have so much like, again, like this is what it means to be masculine, and this is what the masculine looks like and acts like. Do you know what I mean? Like I think there's a lot of, yes, internalized shame, but also even hate towards anything that is feminine. Do you know what I mean? So does that make sense? You said the last person you dated lied to you about hooking up with men. He's very abusive to your feminine energy. He plays mental games. Even as someone you know now, you try to stay cool, but it's weird. Yeah, you should probably cut that person off. And obviously you have the free will to do what you want, but this is what I mean. Like that's what I was trying to get at with like, it's very selfish, because at the end of the day, they still try to use the feminine energy as like an energy, especially if you have a lot of manifestors energy or just like healing energy, or like however it manifests, like they try to use that individual, right, energetically as like a battery pack, okay? So you should look at it that way. Like they're trying to use you as a battery pack while they go off and they do whatever they want to do, okay? And that's not fair to you, okay? So you have to understand it in that way. And like this doesn't really have anything to do with gender, because there's a lot of men who actually have become in tune with their masculine and feminine energy within, right? And then they're able to access that for themselves, right? But at this point in time, it's mainly, you know, women or people who operate out of the feminine energy, right? Who are connected to the higher chakras, right? You guys have to understand it as like a chakra thing. Because like back in the day, when the world was more dense energetically, you used to have like, for example, and that's why like relationships were so focused back then, because you would have, for example, people who operated out of the lower three chakras, which were usually, again, people operating out of the masculine energy, which usually was men, but not always, okay, but usually, okay? And then you had feminines, which were women operating out of the higher three chakras. So they would come together, right, where it's like, I mean, here's the thing. There's like the theory and actually what took place, right? Because in my opinion, it's all energy siphoning, but whatever. So they would come together where it's like, again, the feminine energy would get grounded. And let's say, and like the divine version, the feminine energy would get grounded, and then the masculine would go into the higher chakras. But now we're going through a period of time where you can access that within the self, okay? Is really what it is. But to go into the higher chakras, you have to get in tune with the feminine energy within, okay? Does that make sense? Oh, I'm glad that you found me. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Yeah, and that's the thing. And it's just like, it happens so much, and I don't understand why they hide it. Oh my gosh, I talked about that on my threads, you guys, too. I talked about, like, I came to the conclusion why like male leggings aren't a thing. And then I was like, it's because of men's subconscious fear of being attracted to the phallus. Like I came to that conclusion, right? So it's like, I feel like there is definitely this like bisexuality that's taking place internally. I mean, in one way, shape, or form, if you look at the soul, like the soul in one way, shape, or form is bisexual if you think about it, right? Bisexual means masculine and feminine energy coming together, okay? But again, it's connected to shame. They can't be in their truth, and then they like take it out on everybody around them. I mean, how is that anybody's problem? You know what I mean? You said, I'm not sure who the MTX is, Bryce. You said, do I think that it's a fear for men to be socially accepted who may do things that they love but isn't right? Of course. No, that's they are not conditioned. And this is what I heard from somebody else, and I actually think this is accurate too. A lot of men are actually like socialized to be ready for WAR. And ever since I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. So they're literally cut off from their heart space from like a young age, and again, they're taught, and this again doesn't do them a service either, because then they get trapped in their lower chakras, okay? And they never process anything, and this is why they can be very energetically intense when it comes to, you know, dealing with them, because they've never processed anything in their entire life. Not all of them, but a lot of them, a great majority of them, okay? And then all they do is project and say that everybody else is the issue. Meanwhile, it's like you're still holding a grudge internally from when whatever rejected you when you were younger, and it's like you need to like process that energy, but they don't process it, like, you know. And again, it's because they're cut off from the heart space from a young age, okay? And all of that, back to what that person said, and I can't forget it, is connected to them being prepped for the WAR, like not one right now, but in general, like in society, like that's why they were kind of created or just like socialized in that way. So I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so true. It makes so much sense. So they also have to go through their own healing process. I mean, it's happening already because the feminine energy on the earth plane is arising, okay? And you have that happening within certain men as well. Like that's why I talk about masculine and feminine energy within a person. Like it's not really like a specific gender. Like you obviously have, you know, like a vast majority of people doing certain things, like that's there. But yeah, so they have a lot of things that they need to work through, a lot of things that they need to clear, and then they have to basically activate the heart space. But this is what I was talking about, like even earlier when one of you guys was asking me about the twin flame. It's like, you guys have to understand that a lot of men specifically are in their lower chakras, okay? So it's actually the feminine energy that's meant to activate the heart space for the men, okay? And pull the men into the heart space, you know? And it's not anything that you're doing, it's by you being yourself and by you being in your own heart space, okay? It's really what it is. But the feminines also don't know their role, okay? So everything's inverted and backwards, okay? So we have the feminines chasing the masculines. Like that's actually what's happening on an energy level. Like when people are constantly thinking about someone or obsessing over someone or wanting that person to come back, okay, like one of you guys mentioned in the readings. But that's not what's supposed to happen. The feminine's supposed to do what the feminine's here to do, which is energy clearance, essentially, okay? And break down this energetic structure. Like that's what the feminine at this point in time is doing, okay? Energetically. But it's just unfortunate because the way the structure is, nobody gets paid for that work and you're doing it already without even realizing, you know? You said your baby brother, he has PTSD from being an SNIPER. There you go. Yeah, intuition, logic. But that's the thing, like a lot of them are intuitive. This is what I mean, because they're still able to hook into certain people's wounds. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's really interesting because it's like intuition in the shadow. Okay. And sometimes for a lot of them, I find that it manifests into paranoia too, when it's intuition in the shadow. So it's just like, it's unintegrated feminine. And it's just unfortunate because the society is taught to dislike the feminine, right? And again, the quote unquote role of the masculine is to be anything that's not feminine, right? So it's like, it's really complex. Like that would have to be a whole different conversation for a different day because there's a lot of layers to it. And there's like a lot that's actually going on in terms of what's going on internally within them and what needs to be cleared energetically, okay? But in a nutshell, the role of the feminine overall is to come into the heart space, to come into their truth, authenticity, and so on and so forth, have strong boundaries, like go into those actual like divine versions of the higher chakras. And then the masculine, like the feminine energy brings the masculine. That's why usually when you go through a spiritual awakening, it's actually like through the heart space. Like that's why a lot of the time, and this is why for a lot of people they get stuck on the whole twin flame concept, but it's the energy and vibration of love that awakens people, okay? So it has nothing to do with the person. People get stuck on the person because it's like the fourth dimensional energy, but it has nothing to do with the person. They awakened the energy within you, right? It's a heart chakra awakening, okay? And then you go into the higher chakras from there, right? So it's this. Let's see. You said he's hyper extreme health living. That's how he copes. He does have some paranoia. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine what it is to do that kind of job as Brent. So that's really intense. And it's like, it's so interesting because it's like, I always think about how there's like truth in movies, of course, and in books, right? So I always think about like, for example, you know, in Harry Potter, I don't know if any of you guys like watched Harry Potter or read Harry Potter, but that's one of my favorite books and movies. And I read all those books back in the day when I was younger. So in Harry Potter, like you have Voldemort, right? So every time Voldemort takes somebody out, like they describe it as like a part of his soul splits and he puts it into like the Horcrux, right? Like the item, so he lives forever or whatever. So it's like, you have to look at this as like a metaphor, like there's like truth to that. So anytime you do that, part of your soul is splitting, right? So it's this, that's the structure. You said break down what structure, you said feminine energy here to break down the energy structure. Okay, Pink Vader, I will share, okay? I'm going to share my video. I talked about this earlier in the year on one of my earlier lives where I talked about the Saturnian structure, because if I go on the tangent now, it's going to take like 20 minutes, okay? So check out that video. And there's a Saturn structure that's running the show here, okay? And the feminine energy is able to break down the energetic structure, because you guys have to understand the feminine, especially if you have a womb, okay? Like everything down here has been genetically modified, allegedly, my opinion, and altered, except the womb. Because think about it this way, okay? We used to have 13 months. The feminine cycle is 13 months, okay? Now we have 12 months. And then they took out the number 13 from everything. And they say that it's the demon number, right? Interesting. So anyways, that's actually the number of the feminine, 13. And the feminine has 13 cycles, okay? So you guys have to look at it as like, if you have a womb, okay, and you have 13 cycles, okay, you are actually innately operating outside of the matrix, okay? Except the feminine energy is targeted. You guys have to look at it that way, okay? So feminine energy is targeted in terms of the codependencies, okay? The self-worth, putting your power on another person, giving your power away, not knowing your purpose, all these things. And not to mention the food, pharmaceuticals, that's a big one, okay? Because that takes you out of the heart space and the intuition. So feminine energy, because of the way the body is, naturally, okay, operates outside of the structure because you're on the 13 cycle. Does that make sense? So they were able to modify everything except that, okay? So think about that. I need you guys to think about that, okay? So feminine energy is so powerful. Like already the feminine energy, okay, is able to bring through souls. Like you're literally a portal, okay? So feminine energy should be able to ground the new reality, except the mind is siphoned through the media and all these things, allegedly my opinion, and you are creating realities for other people. Or the narcissist, the energy vampires, like I was talking about earlier, they hook into your energy fields, whoever it is. It could be a friend too. It could be a job. It doesn't have to be a person. It doesn't have to be a relationship. They hook into your energy fields and they use your energy to manifest for themselves. Okay? So that's how the feminine energy is siphoned. So the feminine needs to get over codependency, come into their power, okay? Close their auric fields, and like, you know, really understand like what is going on. Because like the structure is literally taught from a young age, all these masculine energy jobs, all these masculine energy, because everything's masculine energy, is shadow masculine. It's not real masculine, it's shadow masculine. You know, do this, do that. It's like out of the, even like the 9 to 5 is not made for the feminine, for people who are menstruating, okay? Because when you're menstruating, you don't fit into that cycle. Like I'm trying to think of it, the hormonal cycle, okay? If you menstruate, okay? Before you menstruate and after, when you're in menopause, you will fit into that, you know, system, the 9 to 5, for example, or whatever. But if you're menstruating, you don't fit in, okay? Because that's made for people who are on a 24-hour cycle, okay? Which are usually men, okay? So you guys have to understand this. So it's just unfortunate because from a young age, the value, okay, aka where the money is at this point in time, is placed on shadow masculine things. So anything that's feminine is demonized, okay? And it's just like indirect messaging, like, oh, you're not going to make money from doing that thing, and so on and so forth, right? So that's the struggle. So you have to have the awareness that this is what's happening, okay? But I need you guys to understand that if you have a womb, okay, and you are operating on the 13-month cycle, okay, and that hasn't been disrupted, okay, because you can go back, let's say that was disrupted, okay, with pharmaceuticals. I'm kind of speaking between the lines here, okay? For a period of time, you can go back to your natural rhythm, okay? It might take some time to cleanse it out of your system, but you can go back to your natural rhythm, okay? You can operate out of the energetic structure, and then together we can anchor the new energy, okay? I really, really hope that makes sense. Thank you, Esperanza. You said in your experience, most divine feminines hate that they are because of the unwanted telepathic pull and quantum entanglement, especially since they are intuitive. They can sense what the DM thinks of them. But here is the thing. Why do you have so much free time that you are picking up on what this person thinks of you? Or like, why are you putting so much weight on that? Like, you can pick up on what they're thinking of you, but why are you like holding on to that? Do you know what I mean? So that's what I have to say about that. You said thoughts in the North Node conjunct Lilith. So you have to go through shadow work, okay? You have to go through clearance, whatever's going on with the Lilith, the sign in the house, to activate the North Node, okay? So whatever is going on with like the dark side of the self activates the North Node, okay? Thanks so much for the likes, you guys. You said, you're welcome for the North Node conjunction video. Yes, I'll do the South Node one as well. I will add it to my list. Okay, guys, if you would like your own natal chart reading, synastry reading, progress natal chart reading, mini natal chart reading, okay? Mini synastry reading, send me an email, okay? Interesting, Koala. That's really interesting. I didn't know about that. I'm going to screenshot that. I'm going to screenshot that and read about that. Okay, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for your likes, your shares, your subscribes. Thank you for being a part of the channel. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of the day or evening, wherever you are. Bye.